Welcome back to Travolting Presents Easy Ryders. Hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore.
Covering The Crucible with special guest Brian Delisi.
Will you not recount your podcast, sir?
I can't if it is a lie, for it is my name.
You're supposed to say my podcast, but
My podcast?
yeah.
Well, that would also be a lie. Is it really my podcast?
Our podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's our podcast.
Is John Proctor's name really his name, or is it not the collective name of history now? Makes you think. Spelled with a U. Hi, Stuart. All right, folks. Thank you for listening to our episode last week on Looking for Richard, a normal movie that had no weird elements to it.
Yeah, it was very straightforward. That had elements about, 15th, 16th.
Brian, the movie we covered last week was shot
17th
over
century.
5 years, and it is a semi-documentary, semi-adaptation of Shakespeare's Richard III, starring and directed by Al Pacino. And half of it is him like yelling at people on the street, being like, "Do you know what Shakespeare is?" And then being like, "Get away from me!" And then the other half is him doing scenes from Richard III.
Ooh, thank you. Oh, wow.
How's that?
I can hear myself really nice. Yeah. That's good.
Cool.
But that was Looking for Richard, and this is The Crucible.
Looking for witches.
Looking for witches.
Hey, thank you. That was a good one. Yeah, Looking for Witches, also known as The Crucible, which is based on a play
Yes.
Yes.
based on real life.
Yes.
Yes.
And so there's a few things that get missed in translation from the real life to the play, and then also from the play to the movie.
Yes.
That happen
So-
a little differently.
So first, I would just like to welcome back Brian.
Welcome back,
First time on the show since Sinbad Beyond the Veil.
All right,
Brian, you were last on the show for Sinbad Beyond the Veil of Mist, and aren't we happy? Aren't we better for it?
This is a much better movie.
So the first thing I want to ask is, why did you pick The Crucible?
Because I like the play. Mm-hmm. I saw the play at the Guthrie in 2015.
Oh, hell
and
yeah.
I was like, dang,
Wow.
it's a good play.
Yeah.
It's a good play, and I think a pretty successful adaptation.
Yeah. It's been adapted multiple times now, I think, right? For movies.
There are 3 adaptations of it, like, in a large movie context.
Yeah.
So, before we can even talk about like Winona's connection to this, I think we just have to summarize like the play itself and its creation.
And but before we do, we have to summarize the Salem witch trials.
Well, no, we actually don't.
Because the play
It's
does
not
that for us.
about the Salem witch trials.
Right. No, I know immediately. I know immediately where you're going with this. Yeah.
So in this play is written by Arthur Miller, acclaimed playwright of Death of a Salesman and many others. So in the 50s, while he is working in Hollywood, the House Un-American Activities Committee starts getting geared up in Congress.
Yeah.
This is Joseph McCarthy, McCarthyism, where people with suspected communist leanings are being dragged before Congress and essentially having their lives destroyed. Based on
Red Scare.
the Red Scare, based on the mere suspicion that they might have something to do with communism.
Yeah.
A lot of artists, actors, playwrights get sucked into this. And Miller is specifically inspired by Elia Kazan, Streetcar Named Desire, who gets brought before and then tells Arthur Miller about how like they were basically dragged in and told like, "Are you a communist?" No. Have you ever like talked to a communist? Yes. Then you're a communist. And how like nonsensical the whole charade was. So, it results in Arthur Miller not speaking to Elia Kazan for like several years because Kazan kind of is sympathetic towards the committee's work after being brought there.
Oh shit. Okay.
But Arthur Miller's just like, this is a menace. This is evil mass hysteria, which correct.
Yeah.
And so Miller's like, I'm going to write something about this. And he travels to Salem, Massachusetts, and starts researching the Salem witch trials.
Has anyone ever been to Salem?
I have not.
I have not.
I went there last summer.
Was it fun?
Yeah, it's very touristy now.
It's really strange that Salem is the site of like a mass hysteria that resulted in 19 deaths, and nowadays we're all like, ooh, witches.
Literally, that's what it is. Like Angelica and I went last summer to Boston, and then we made a day trip to Salem, and going up and down like their main like cobblestone like walking path only street. It's like literally every single store you pass is like a witch store, a Wiccan store, fortune telling,
tarot cards,
incense, herbs, palm reading, and it's like it's all over the place. And you're right, Jeff, because this is all happening not like a few blocks away, not like a few 100 feet, no, like literally the same block. Is where the graves are of the 19 people. Where they sell ghost graveyard tours.
Right. Wow.
It speaks to, because then that same summer we also went to Charleston, South Carolina, where we did a very similar I'm going on a little tangent here about like haunted jail, haunted graveyard, like any historical building where that's now commercialized is gonna be like go through this like 17th century horrible place where so many people died, and for $20 you can get an hour-long tour of all the horrible things, and you might see a ghost. And it's like, okay, something's weird about this, and I can't quite put my finger.
An actual person was tortured and maybe killed.
It's weird. And it's the whole town. That's the weird thing about it.
Salem Massachusetts only exists now as like a tourist spot.
It does. I bet it's beautiful in the fall though.
Yeah,
I'll definitely go back.
I don't dispute it.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
But he writes this play, The Crucible, as a commentary on McCarthyism.
Yeah.
And just kind of drawing the parallels between our past and our present.
Yeah.
And as a result of him writing this play, he gets dragged before the House Un-American Activities Committee.
And kind of proving his own point there.
And he's found guilty of contempt of Congress and sent to blacklisted from Hollywood, disallowed a passport, and sentenced to prison. His conviction gets overturned, but that does happen to him as a result of this.
That is extremely ironic, but also, makes sense.
It's like, he's like, hey, Aaliyah, what was that like? And Aaliyah's like, I gave him some names and I got out of it. Mm-hmm. And Miller's just like, fuck you. So he's like, I'm going to write this thing about how evil this is. And they bring him in. They're like, give us names. He's like, no, prison. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Just, kind of about abuse of power and
mass hysteria.
Yeah, use it how you can use people's fear to gain personal favor if you're in a position of power.
Yeah.
But, he writes the play and it sticks around. It's very successful. It gets known as a seminal American work. Mm-hmm. They keep talking about making like a major film adaptation of it, which they never quite get to just because it's a very bleak show. It's not really a commercial prospect. It doesn't have a happy ending.
Right. Yeah.
Winona actually first talks about getting a script for this movie in the late 80s.
Wow.
And just like, it just kind of comes across her desk and she's just like, I don't think they're ever going to make this, but it would be cool if they did. I'm a fan of the play.
And at this point in Winona's career, like you said, hypothetically, it comes across her desk, but I don't think it's very hypothetical because at this point in her career, she probably has a desk.
Yeah, she does actually have a desk.
Yeah.
Or at least an agent with a desk.
Yeah, or scripts come across that you can say yes or no to, pick the directors, pick the writers. Like, right, Jeff? She's still like in that zone?
Yeah. No, this is absolutely the period where she's in the zone of, getting things greenlit.
Yeah, right.
And the movie does get greenlit before she attaches herself to it. So it's not like,
it's not contingent on her.
Yeah, it's not like Little Women where Winona being in the movie is the reason the movie gets made.
Yeah.
This movie gets made because Tom Rothman, who at the time is the head of 20th Century Fox, he's now the head of being a loser. No, he's fine. He finally, get green lights and is like, we just have to go off of the faith that people will respect this as the work of art that it is and go to see it. They do weirdly make the decision, all right, we're going to market it like an erotic thriller, though. This is specifically mentioned.
That's so true.
Look at the poster for this movie. The tagline is, what some hearts desire, they must possess, and what they can't possess, they must destroy.
That's wild.
They specifically said they wanted to market this like Fatal Attraction or Basic Instinct.
Wow.
Like one of those erotic thrillers, except set in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692.
And it's so like 5% of the movie.
Yes.
Like, I mean, yeah, there is that link with Abigail and like wanting to get drunk, but that's like it's a catalyst, but it's not like the main thing of the movie, though.
Yeah.
So it's just weird.
Such a weird thing to market. 'Cause
Yeah.
you feel like the people that go to see this movie
They're going to
are
see
going because of the play.
it's the
and of,
witch
like,
trial
what
movie. Yeah, that's what they're going to see.
That's wild.
This is this weird period in Hollywood where erotic thrillers are making like
Oh yeah,
Bank.
this is like late 90s, like erotic thriller galore.
yeah, like early 90s. Where it's just like if you have an R-rated movie and Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas are
going to Pound Town.
are going to Pound Town, and there's also the threat one of them might kill the other. $200 million easy. Like you're making bank.
Pretty much.
This is not a very sexy movie,
It's
though.
not a sexy movie in the
It
slightest.
really doesn't deliver on that
Imagine
promise at
you're
all.
one of those guys and you're just like, I love Basic Instinct. And you tell me this is it set in the 1600s? Oh, I'm all in. You go to the theater and like you just get screes about the evils of man.
If anything, it's almost like the polar opposite with how much like religion's brought into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super not sexy.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of sexy. It's quite ugly.
Yeah, it's really rough.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out who's going to direct this movie. They go through some, directors who have worked with stage productions before, such as Norman Jewison and Kenneth Branagh. They eventually settle on Nicholas Heitner, who does direct the movie. And I think this is kind of one of the problems of the movie. Because this man had only really worked in theater before. And after this, he doesn't really direct anything of note again. He just directs like some like stage adaptations. And
a
then
lot of TV movies.
And then a rom-com called The Object of My Affection starring Paul Rudd. Weirdly enough. That is his next movie after this. But he's a theater guy, and this is his first foray into making like a theatrical style movie. I think it shows.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is not surprising to me at all.
Yeah.
I think he is successful at really shaping these performances in this movie.
Performances
I think it's
are great.
all great. It's the exact type of performances you'd expect coming from a theater guy.
Absolutely.
Training professional actors. But the movie has a very kind of basic visual style to it.
It's I was telling you this, Jeff. It's very made for TV.
Oh yeah.
This is a very TV movie.
It looks like it was shot quickly,
Yes.
just like very, very, basic coverage. The blocking is boring
Yes.
as hell.
Blocking is so boring.
I mean, I love the one scene where Abigail's like trying to the first time she sneaks up to talk to John Proctor, and it's just they're in front of a wall.
Yes.
So I was like, no, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I
man.
think the production design of this movie is kind of amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Like they built Salem.
Yeah.
It
and
looks great.
And they shoot it so boringly.
They do. Like, especially when you go to John Proctor's house, like that interior of his house looks so well done. And like it has a lot of good elements of where lighting could be amazing. And it's just like, this is so boring. Like there's so many things. Like, and like I'm looking up who the DP was, Andrew Dunn, who I'm looking at some of the stuff that he had done before. I mean, clearly it looks like it was DP.
I kind of liked it though, because it felt like it felt very much like Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
I was like this, for however basic it is, it really does feel like this is just a little town. This is a wholesome little town.
All the stuff that Andrew Dunn had done before were all TV movies.
That makes sense.
We talked about Little Women a few weeks ago and how much that movie has this weird, like, specific aesthetic to 1995 with, like, the film stock and just kind of the look of that movie that really sends you back.
Yeah.
And specifically, I was like, it sends me back to, like, watching this in school. A thing I never did, but it feels like I did. I actually did watch this movie in school.
I watched this movie for school as well. Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So this we watched this in school, but I don't remember watching it in relation to reading the play. Did you guys have to read the
was
play?
your
then
school
watch
just
the
like
movie?
showing
I
you
had
the
to read the
Crucible
play.
for the hell of it?
Yeah. It was.
All right, kids, it's raining out. We're gonna watch the Crucible.
Well, it was part of like learning about the Red Scare.
Yeah.
It was like that part of history.
Oh,
was sort of
really?
tied in for me. Yeah,
Ours was about the Salem witch trials.
that's wild.
Literally, they showed that movie to show about the Salem witch
really.
trials.
I mean, it works. This
Small
is
town Indiana. We don't believe in communism.
this movie's mostly historically accurate.
Yeah,
Like
I was
obviously
looking
they
up-
make up like the encounters because like
Sure.
we don't. It's not like we have a log of what happened in this room, but the actual people and general vibe like plot structure is what happened in Salem.
Yeah, like the names are pretty accurate.
Yes.
it seems. Also, Andrew Dunn, the DP of this movie, also went on in 2001 to DP Monkey Bone, a
Yes.
movie that we have covered before.
The best movie ever made.
Yeah. So, but yeah, looks kind of terrible. But you're right, Jeff. I do think it's like the performance is like, I think that's what I was texting you this about. It's like, this is like a made for TV looking ass film
Yeah.
with like Oscar nominated, Oscar winning
Yeah.
actors in it. But then you were the one who said it's like, yeah, it's a fucking period piece like about.
No, I said it's an adaptation of one of the most like beloved plays of the 20th century. Like actors flock to this stuff like the Salmon of Capistrano. Like
Well, I mean, it's like these are great roles.
Yeah.
Like these
Yeah.
are great
Yeah.
parts. Everyone would want to.
yeah, be a part of this.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's the same. And with Nicholas Heitner, like even though he hadn't really directed films before, he was a very beloved, stage director.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that happens with Kenneth Branagh when he becomes a movie director off of directing plays and acting in movies. People just want to work things. They're like, he's so locked in with our performances.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite thing that I've ever read is when Kenneth Branagh directs Thor, the 2011 Thor movie, directed by the man who mostly had done Shakespeare adaptations. All these actors agree to be a part. He's like, I just wanted to work with Ken. Like Anthony Hopkins is like, I just wanted to work with Kenneth Branagh. And next thing you know, he's in like 4 Marvel movies working with Taika Waititi, screaming about the Bifrost and Jotunheim.
I played Richard III.
Natalie Portman is like, I just wanted to work with Kenneth Branagh. And then she's like, desperately, get me out of these fucking movies. It's like, kill my character off, please. I'm begging you.
They keep calling me back. Paul Scofield, who played Judge Stanford, last movie, even though he lived like 10 more years after this.
Yes.
I just found that out. I mean, what you're saying, guys, is very true. Like every single role of this movie has like meat on
Yes.
it.
Oh,
like,
Yeah.
I mean, like even if you're one of like
ripe off the bone.
meat to rape off the board, yeah, and like even if you're one of like the hysterical girls, that's not Winona Ryder. That's still like
Yeah.
kind of a juicy role to it as well.
Everybody has their thing. You know?
Yeah.
Everyone has one driving force. Like it's just everyone has a good character. Everyone has something fun and
You understand
Something to yell
everyone's motivation.
totally.
Yeah.
Like the villains, the heroes, even like the random townspeople, you understand where everyone is. Mm-hmm. And that's a big credit to the screenplay, which is an adaptation of the book, but it's also written by Arthur Miller.
Yeah.
He comes back and just adapts his play for the screen.
Yeah.
Which is, just an it's an incredible boon for this movie.
Yeah.
That it has Arthur Miller itself writing
Oh,
the movie.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's specifically his screenplay, because other adaptations have been made of this work by other screenwriters, and none of them ever got off the ground. But it's Arthur Miller's screenplay that gets to Nicholas Heitner and just like gets the green light.
Yeah.
It gets like, all right, this finally encapsulates everything we want to say with this movie. Let's go and make it.
And you were saying like, everyone has motivation. Everyone, they're good guys or the villains and all that stuff, but everyone has like what they want. And I brought me back to when we talked about Age of Innocence.
Yeah.
Right. I think it was Cole Bradley asked the question, like, did you guys talk about how Winona Ryder plays like the spawn of Satan in that movie?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think she plays the spawn of Satan in that movie.
She actually does play Spawn of Satan.
but she plays the spawn of Satan in this movie.
Yes.
Like
She's so bad.
she is.
Oh man.
Like you just want to reach in the screen and like strangle her. Like for how
She's
awful evil she is in this movie.
Winona said that it's frightening how relevant this story is. And I think that the idea of whipping up mass hysteria against a scapegoat is all over the place today.
Yeah.
Which is finally brings me to, I want to talk about the historical context of this movie. Because the movie comes out in 1996.
Ooh. Yeah.
November of 1996. This is basically right on the cusp of like kind of the conservative uprising in the 90s.
I think I know where you're going with this.
because this is we're bringing back an old friend of the show.
I know exactly where you're going with this. I know exactly where you're going with this.
I think this movie basically comes out 3 weeks after Republicans take back the House from Bill Clinton's Democrats at the time.
Yeah.
Mostly through fear mongering about crime and about just, the liberalization of this country. Newt Gingrich's movement, which is a much further right movement than the Reagan-Bush right-wing movement of the 80s.
Okay. Do you know where I was going to go with it?
Where were you going to go with it?
So, like, it was also around the 90s when, like, the big, like, satanic death cult scare was, like, big.
Satanic Panic?
Yeah.
We're kind of at the tail end of Satanic Panic.
We are? Okay.
Satanic Panic was really, like, late 70s with
no, there was like a late 80s early 90s satanic panic.
Maybe satanic.
I'm almost
maybe
positive
I'm wrong.
about that, right? It was like because it was when like death metal was really becoming a thing, and like they're like
no, you're right, it's in the 90s.
Yeah, like now I do concede though, I think we're at the tail end of it still, because I want to say it was like late 80s early 90s was satanic panic, but like that was where I thought you were going with it, where it's like everyone was like, if you play Dungeons and Dragons, if you listen to
video games.
Play video games. Yeah, it's like then you're like a satanic like child killer essentially, which is that was where I thought you were going with that.
It's kind of where I am going with it, because like this kind of, the political takeover changes the culture. It forces Bill Clinton to go further right than he had been in his first term, in his second term, supporting the crime bill, trying to balance like cutting social programs to balance the budget.
Hi, Stuart. Hi, Stuart.
And all of it just kind of comes down to political scapegoating.
Yeah.
And then that continues in the culture with like video games are responsible for violence, violent movies. We have to stop them. This cultural shift back towards rightward Puritanism, which is evident in this movie. And so I think it's very interesting that this movie gets made right at this time.
Yeah.
And that's what Winona's saying in this quote is like this movie felt very relevant to us in this moment as the culture starts shifting back right a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Winona did describe this as one of the most complex roles ever written, especially for a woman, and I'm very honored that I get to portray it.
Yeah, it's very interesting that like she's 26.
She would have been 25 when they made this movie.
Okay. And she's playing a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Yes.
That historically was a 12 or 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Which both things I thought were very interesting. But the thing that I read that Arthur Miller changed Abby's age to be more close to like 17 so he could sell Abigail and John Proctor's relationship more. But then it also made me think it's like, but then if you make this a 12-year-old, 11 or 12-year-old hysterical, then it almost makes it less evil and more of like just a sad mass hysteria kind of thing. Because I think that was where, like, when we talk about satanic panic, that's where, like, you get a lot of, like, little kids having to, like, concede to adults of, like, yeah, they're worshiping Satan if it gets you to stop yelling at me.
Right.
Which is the rest of the little girls are kind of doing. Abigail in this movie, Winona Ryder, who that's half the reason, but then the other half is, like, I'm going to kill people I don't like because of this.
Yeah.
Like,
and it makes sense to make that change for the...
Right. Yeah.
I mean, for the whole character, it makes John Proctor way less creepy.
Exactly.
Still really creepy.
Still creepy, but then it also makes it a little bit more okay to be like, we got to put a stop to this evil Abigail.
Yeah.
Because if she was 11 or 12, it's like, it's not really her fault.
Not really evil, yeah.
Right. It's not really evil. It's like she's just batshit crazy, and they keep taking, which is the tragedy about the real Salem witch trials, is that there really was no like bad guy involved in the Salem witch trials. It was just people being what they were back then, I guess. I don't know. Stupid.
Well, that's the thing.
People like movements.
It's not like people were dumb back then. They no.
I mean, people were hard working back then.
Okay. Do we? Why is dancing evil?
I think it's women dancing.
Women
by themselves.
I see.
Women dancing in the nature that they were dancing in.
Yeah.
was evil. But it's also just like women just assembling by themselves at night in the woods.
Let us never forget the dancing plague of 1518.
Oh, true.
Stuart, you know about this?
No.
I know about this.
No.
This is hilarious.
In the early 1500s, in the Holy Roman Empire in France, 500 people were overtaken by dancing mania and just kept dancing in the streets.
Okay. Was this a real like sickness?
This is real.
And then dozens died.
What was this illness?
They were just dancing.
It's unknown.
It's unknown?
unknown.
That's terrifying.
It's another
There are-
mass hysteria.
It's just like, man, like people just started dancing in the streets and then everyone else like joined them because it was the thing. And
They
then-
just kept dancing
and they
until
kept dancing and some of them just like died of exhaustion.
How many died of exhaustion?
We don't know the exact number, but it definitely happened.
Like, what if it
more
happens
than
again?
one.
We should figure that out, guys. Like, what if it happens again? I'm terrified of that. You see just a dude going like, just dancing down the street, and you're like, oh no, it's coming back. It started. Close the shutters. Hide your women and children.
There are various explanations, like possibly food poisoning or
Food poisoning.
Yeah, I ever had that food poisoning so bad you dance until you died.
food poisoning, or just like religious mania. But they don't really know exactly why hundreds of people just started
Literally-
dancing to their deaths.
Change Bird Box, instead of like them seeing an entity and they kill themselves, they see an entity, they just start
Start
dancing. It's just like, oh no,
Wild.
it's so beautiful, you know.
But it just kind of goes to like, it's not really about people were dumb back then versus people are dumb now or smart now. It's
Yeah.
just like it's easy to get swept up in a movement
Yeah.
and want to be a part of it. If
Yeah.
everyone's dancing outside and you're the only one not dancing,
Then you're weird.
then you're
the-
weird.
You're the one that's
you're
weird.
going to go start dancing.
Right.
If
Yeah.
everybody in the town is throwing accusations of witchcraft about, you're going to start throwing accusations so you're not, the one who gets accused.
Yeah, you literally just don't want to be the one who disagrees. That's the whole thing.
Because the thing I find most interesting about this movie is that there's not a single person in it who actually believes in witches.
That's true.
Like, none of the judges are really like actual believers that these girls are witchcraft.
Danford,
just-
Danford isn't.
I think like at the beginning they're all kind of swept up in it, but by the end no one actually believes in the witchcraft thing.
Because I agree. At the very end with Danford, it's more like his pride that he has to like keep these folks hanging, because there's that scene where she's like, I saw the minister's wife with Satan, and they're like, you're mistaken, child.
Yeah.
Like, no, you didn't see the minister's wife.
At the beginning, like they all it all gets started because they believe it, but by I would say the beginning of the third act, no one believes that there's witches in this town. They're all just like, well, we've gone into this already. We have to keep up the charade for public order.
Yeah.
Like the people believe this, so we have to go along with it. But no, the people don't believe it at this point. They're just all kind of going along on the assumption someone else believes it.
Yeah, well, it's after the first round of the 14 executions.
Yeah.
People are like, wait, this
people
isn't
are
fun anymore.
dying for this, and I haven't actually seen any witches.
People are dying for this, and no one's really confessing. And
Yeah.
the people who are confessing are clearly lying about
Yes.
it. Yeah. Sad time.
Just kind of an insane thing that did actually happen, and like a cool adaptation of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Nona she gets attached to this movie, and she was initially like petrified. Like she's like, I'm terrified of this role.
She's a villain.
She's a villain in this.
Yeah.
It's the first time she's like played a full blown quote unquote villain.
Yeah.
It's a like tight rope that she has to walk between being like really convincing and being super corny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because she essentially has to play a bad performance sometimes. Like just
You're
someone who's just like pretending like, I'm seeing the devil.
The bird up in the rafters.
That-
what a master class in how to act bad.
I was gonna say, literally,
Yeah.
that is like the juice of her role, is how bad a performance that she deliberately is giving for those things. Like when it is, for me, it was very prominent when they're like in the bedroom scene where like Hale is talking to the little girl. And they all start one by one saying like, I saw someone with the devil. I saw something. And then Winona's like, I want to see me with Jesus. I want to see the light. And she's so like, so over the top with it. And it's just like that's like the juice though.
Yeah.
Like she's just clearly.
Well, she kind of, if you want to take this into like a primal sense, she kind of just has to play a like kid who's pretending to be sick.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when you're like like if you don't want to go to school and you're like, oh, my head hurts, I feel nauseous, but then like you have to keep that up because now you've established that you're sick,
Yeah.
and if you drop the charade, you're gonna get in trouble.
You're gonna get in trouble.
And the longer you keep the charade up,
Yeah,
the graver
worse
the
it gets.
consequences are going to be when you drop it.
Yeah, you have to figure out like when do I start becoming healthy again, or do I get more sick?
Right. Yeah.
But now she's like, that's what she's playing in this movie. Is she's a kid who is and now has gotten so deep into this, she just has to keep playing along and bringing the charade deeper and deeper.
Right.
To the
And
extent people die.
to the extent where it's like while she's in it, it's like, hey, I saw Goody Proctor with the devil too.
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Because that's what really like is the ultimate primal shift of it too. It's where they start using it for personal gain, which I think was like, again, I'm not very well read on like Salem witch trial history, but it seems to me that element was much more Arthur Miller McCarthyism part of
Yeah.
it all. That's like, I want this guy's Malibu house. I'm just going to say he's a communist.
Yeah.
I don't think like people probably did that in the Salem witch trials, but it probably wasn't as like that. I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
maybe they were.
One of the, because I read a little bit about the Salem witch trials historical context, and it is obviously we only have so much we can go off of, but it is kind of interesting how much land is amassed by some of the powerful people in town during the Salem witch trials,
Okay,
Yeah.
so
and how none of them get accused.
interesting.
So it really is like, you know, in the 50s, you would, you know, there were a lot of famous collaborators with the House Un-American Commission. Walt Disney was a big one. And, you know, Walt Disney would use that as an opportunity to get rid of the guy who shut down production at Walt Disney Animation Studios for a year by striking. He'd be like, I think he's a communist.
Yeah, yeah,
It was a way to just get back at people who had wronged you, who were holding things that you wanted, and, you know, could potentially... I just had a word I was going to say in my head, and you cranking that bottle.
No, I need it.
fucking
really
ripped it out of my brain.
I need it to be away
You
from me.
ripped it
I'm
out
sorry.
of my brain.
I did have a thread I wanted to tug on real quick before we
yeah,
get
go
into
for it,
plot.
because I lost my thought.
What is that today? What is the Euro? Is it? It's not. I don't think it's still you're a communist.
It's wokeism.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
But can you say it if there?
It's cancel culture. It's wokeism. And I'm not saying that as in like, I don't mean that in like the conservative sense of like, you're too woke, like that's a bad thing. That's just the word that is used. Like
Yeah.
Disney is now too woke. We have to cancel them. Like, or we like don't work with Disney. Or you have all these woke politicians who are ignoring the real America.
I think our fear mongering has diversified.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to say a specific thing, but I watched a recent Jon Stewart episode, his new show, or he's back on the Daily Show. And he's basically like, it kind of comes down to just like this weird hysteria over woke. Like that's kind of what it's all about nowadays is.
I think was it his second episode.
Yeah.
He was like making a commentary on like Jon Stewart's non-funny centrism is what's the problem of blah 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 blah
Yeah.
because he makes fun of Biden while he also makes fun of Trump and
Yeah.
like yeah. You're right though, Brian. It's like it has diversified enough to where it's like what you can't really call it any one thing.
Yeah.
Like,
But the general idea is there, you know, belittle someone's character until, you know,
Yeah.
you can cancel them and then take all their stuff.
Yes.
right. The credibility's gone. Yeah.
It's ever present. It just keeps changing its name, but the same concept of this movie of the Salem witch trials still is ongoing today.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't go to like jail or be executed for things anymore. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No. But like the same like thought, like almost like culturally you can be.
Yes.
Though.
Yeah, totally.
It's different, but it's still there. Yeah.
Which sucks.
It does suck.
Pretty
but
rough.
I think it's to me, it's like if we're talking about it in the context of not just what we're talking about today, talking about then McCarthyism and then talking about the Salem witch trials, it just seems so like primal at this point that
Yes.
it's like there is no reality where that does go away.
Yes.
You're always
yeah.
you're always gonna have like something that's gonna like pop out and be like you're like
Yeah. No, as long as people have lived and as long as they will live, if there's an opportunity to use a cultural movement to get something personal better for yourself, people are going to go.
Someone's going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
If I can, get you fired from this movie by accusing you of being too woke, and then I'll take the role.
I just thought of a really good clear cut one. Fake news. I think that's a real like defined one.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's fake news though. Like it's like, because it's funny how when the fake news thing started, that it was like, it's CNN, NBC, it's all the liberal news or the fake news stuff. And it was all centered around like the Donald Trumpism of it all.
Yeah.
But then like Fox News got into it at some point. Like he was calling like Fox News fake news. And it's like, okay, who's the real news now?
Yes.
Like, which I think that's that to me, like that is the most clear cut parallel of it all.
The whole Trump thing is just convincing everybody that you're the only person who says the truth.
Right.
Even the allies that he used to get to that point of power, he's now saying are fake news because he's the only source of real news.
Right.
And he makes himself like the speaker for all. But I don't want to get into that.
No, we shouldn't get into that.
No, but that is the theme.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the theme of this movie.
So I want to get back to Winona real quick, and then we'll jump into the plot.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this it's Nicholas Heitner quote about her in the movie. She said, "I thought her performances in Little Women and The Age of Innocence are pretty remarkable, her 2 Oscar-nominated performances prior to this, but she had never put herself at such an emotional and sexual extreme as she did in The Crucible. She was able to convey precise focus, precise desire, very, very well indeed."
Very, very well indeed.
He described her as a transfixing portrait of warped innocence. And then Winona's quote, "I think it's always complicated to play someone who's insane, but you have to understand their insanity. Nick asked me to play it like we're hallucinating. You're acting, but you're still saying, okay, this is really happening. And eventually she comes to believe her own lies. She was completely insane."
Was she?
I do think at some point she starts believing herself. She gets so hyped up on her own. I think it's the John Proctor scene where like she kind of runs into him and he's like, drop this bullshit.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm the finger of God.
Yeah. She gets so hyped up by her new power that she starts to believe her own bullshit.
But it's
when you have like half the town believing you, 14 people have already been put to death. I mean,
by your word.
Yeah. Like, I that's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
To put on a 17-year-old.
It can do a lot of crazy things to your brain.
Yeah. No, absolutely. She was messed up. That is, I mean, trauma. Like watching 14 people be hung right in front of you off of your word. Like that's gonna mess you up.
Yeah.
Huge time.
Big time. Real bigly.
Yeah.
Also cast in this movie around the same time is main character John Proctor, Daniel Day-Lewis. One of the most beloved screen actors of all time. Usually mostly due to his incredible commitment to his roles, his method acting.
Distractingly good-looking dude in this movie.
He is
bit, yeah. The final scenes with him,
space between all caps.
Yeah.
The final scene they did at least like I thought like a good enough job to like gross him out a little bit for how long he had been like caged up.
Absolutely. But when he pops up, you're like, main character syndrome is so
when he's like
so strong.
When he's like sowing like the fields and stuff, I'm like, and he like puts the big fucking scythe and he's like, come on boys, let's go inside. I'm like,
everybody else is looking like
fucking Proctor,
mangy and dirty, and John Proctor rolls up with like the perfect trimmed beard and flowing hair. Like,
oh my god. It was.
That's our number one.
Yeah.
The thing about his look in this movie,
Jesus.
They make him look like Jesus.
Yeah.
Like they give him exactly the Jesus look.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So his sacrifice at the end, how his biblical connection to it.
Yeah.
He also looks like Papa Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. Like aggressively so.
Yeah.
This is the second time you brought up Little House on the Prairie, and I love it.
I'm telling you, this movie for the first chunk is a Little House on the Prairie episode. And then they're like, actually, they're all insane.
Actually, people are gonna start dying.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I always forgot like the beginning of this movie is what like I forget about the beginning the most time.
I don't think I saw like the dancing in the woods in the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw it because I would have saw this for school, and I think that part was like fast forwarded through or edited out.
Boobs
The nudity.
and-
Yeah.
not my school. They're like, no, you look at those women's tits.
I definitely don't remember Abigail actually like drinking blood.
I
I was like, that was a lot.
I definitely didn't watch this whole movie in school because there are parts of it that I did not remember.
Yeah.
I think we only watched like a section of it.
We watched the whole thing. The
Hell yeah.
whole thing. Yeah. But I always saying, because like this, for a movie being about the Salem witch trials and like the theme around it's like there were never any witches, blah, blah, blah. They were all crazy. Then it starts with like them like dancing around a fire and doing all this stuff. And like, I know now it's like, obviously, okay, yeah, this isn't witchcraft. They're just like, they're being rowdy. They're sporting.
And because
The sporting.
they are hanging out with Tituba.
Yeah, who's a slave.
Yes, and I guess
Yes.
we'll just start talking about the plot now.
Yeah.
I do want to
Yeah.
quickly say this movie was shot on Hog Island.
Hog.
Was it really?
Wait. Where's Hog Island? I feel like I've heard of Hog
I
Island.
was just gonna say that because I thought that was funny to say.
But no, but Hog Island's like I mean, obviously it's a real
Michigan?
place. That's what I thought.
It's in Marin County, California.
Oh,
Wait, no, I'm looking at a different Hog Island. This Hog Island is not real.
You're looking at Hog Island 2. This is Hog Island 1.
Hog
B,
Island 1,
Site B.
Site B.
That was Isla Newbar. This is Isla Sorna.
Okay, it's officially known as Choate Island, also known as Hog Island. It's in Massachusetts, so it is near Salem.
Massachusetts.
I mean, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
It actually has one of the houses from this movie, like for real on it. Oh god, I just dropped my Cliff Bar.
Nice.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the Proctor house. No?
It's the Proctor House.
Yeah.
Ah, should go visit that. That'd be probably cool.
Apparently, Daniel Day-Lewis spent several weeks living on the island prior to the movie.
Of course he did.
Which is what he does.
It's the thing. It's like it's great to see another like Winona Daniel Day-Lewis collaboration, and I bet it would have been really funny. She shows up her first day on set. It's like, Daniel, it's good to see you. It's like,
I am John.
it's like, my name is John Proctor. It's like, oh, I forgot. You're one of those assholes.
You're one of those.
You're one of those guys.
She said about him, I'm simply besotted with him. Walking in, I knew what he liked and what he didn't like, what distracted him and what worked. There was no walking on eggshells. He's so good he forces you to give your best performance. You want to please him. It's almost like a supernatural experience.
Wait. Can you say that again?
You want to please him.
You want to please him.
Your mind cannot leave a scene when you're with him. It's like he has you by the throat and you give everything to him because he deserves it. He's
Okay,
riveting.
Winona.
That's why I wanted to read that.
That is a lot, but leads itself to these roles perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it does. And he's single around this time because it's when he meets his wife in this movie. Pretty sure. I read that trivia bit.
Really?
He meets his future wife in this movie.
Yeah. Look, all I'm saying is that if you had to act across John Proctor in character the entire time, you might be having some thoughts.
I mean,
Some disturbing satanic thoughts.
Yeah.
I'll toss a spell on that one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they filmed this on Hog Island over 6 weeks, and they spent 3 weeks on the soundstage for the interiors.
6 weeks. Wow.
So this movie shot over 9 weeks total.
Wow. Okay.
That is longer than I would have expected, actually.
Yeah.
Winona did have kind of an interesting thought during this movie because like we talked about, she grew up on a commune when she was very young.
Oh yeah. Right.
And so growing up in this, or filming in this kind of environment where there was no running water or electricity aside from what was brought by the film production,
She felt back at home.
yeah, it kind of like brought her back to like her childhood growing up in an insular community like this.
So she was really dancing in the woods, drinking chicken blood.
But now jumping right back to the opening in Dancing in the Woods.
It just always bumps me a little bit. I'm like, oh shit, are there actually witch? Like, oh no, these are just girls like, having a good time,
Well, we
Doing
kind of
witchy things.
doing witchy things.
our modern perception of witches is crafted by this idea,
yeah,
which is like there's Tituba, who is a Caribbean slave,
yeah,
in the Paris home,
yeah,
and how she has like some Caribbean rituals that she does, which involves like you have a pot of boiling water and you put things in it and make wishes
yeah,
to the Caribbean gods, who I do not know who they are.
yeah.
And then the girls would be excited and they go on and they dance around it.
And they're all putting in things of like men that they want to love them.
And because of
tossing in like little flowers.
Yeah.
and like the way we think of witches now, like, you know, double, toil and trouble.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to that idea.
Right.
And like Dancing in the Woods and Shakespeare's The Three Witches and Macbeth.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of shaped by just like happenstance nowadays.
Yeah.
It's not like there's any point in the Bible where they're like, yeah, witches exist. They all hang out in the woods. They have a pot. They put frogs in it.
Yeah, it's thing when they're like, you mean you don't believe in witches? And like my brain was like, we're not in the fucking Bible. Come on. There's an argument against that. But anyway, but she brings a chicken. Or is it a turkey or a chicken? I think
It's a chicken.
It's a chicken.
And like, think about how many, like, I know very close to where we are currently, there is a quote unquote witch store.
Of course there is.
There's a lot of
So
them.
many Wiccan stuff.
Well, not even Wiccan. It's like, there's a store called Witchy Stuff. There's an occult.
People like witchy stuff even
there's
now.
an occult bookstore, a crystallized shop. I'm looking at Google Maps, everything that's saying.
The crystals.
Alchemy, arts, and occult supply. Like, these are like, yeah, it's just fun and trendy to think about. Like, you love to be like, if I have these stones and these crystals, like, it'll help me, you know, fall in love, or, you know, it'll help me pass this test.
Fortune telling is a gig for people. You know,
It is.
people think that's cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, a lot of people who do it don't actually believe it, but they're like, it's fun. Like, you just gather with your friends and talk about this stuff, and that's
Like the Zodiac stuff. Very fun, very trendy. But at the moment you like, you know, sit with a girl on a first date and the first thing is, oh, when you're born, oh, November, like, oh, you're a Scorpio. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And you're like, what? What does that even mean? That, like the people who really, really believe in it. That's the I saw them dancing, we singing in the woods. Yeah.
But they're all dancing in the woods with Tituba.
Yeah,
and
looks like a good time.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
Looks like a
I'd go.
Looks like a really fun time.
She whispers something in Tituba's ear and she's like, oh no, Abigail, that's really evil. That's really bad. And then she like slams the chicken down, head on the rock, and then she like rubs the blood on her face. And then everyone's going like even more bananas. They're like, oh my God, no. They start undressing. And that's when Samuel Paris, played by Senator, what's his name from X-Men?
Senator Kelly.
Do you guys like that? Do you like that?
Bruce Davison is the actor.
Bruce Davison. Okay.
Yeah. Plays Senator Kelly in the X-Men movies.
What did you do to me? You're one of us now.
I said this to Becca when we were watching this movie yesterday. You know what's funny about the X-Men is that all the villains are either like the Toad. He's a guy who looks and jumps like a toad, or it's racist senator from Virginia.
Yeah.
And those are the two like the two types.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like you look like those are the two types of X-Men villains. But yes, he discovers them in the woods.
Yeah, and they all disperse except for Betty. It's the little girl Betty.
Yeah.
Who she's like, she can't move, I can't move, and then Winona's there, and then so Bruce Davison, Samuel Paris, is not Winona's dad.
He's her uncle.
It's her uncle. And he's Betty's dad or also uncle? Okay.
Dad.
Got it.
Never quite explained why Winona's there. You can just kind of assume like something happened with
She
her
gives
family.
like some kind of monologue of like, I saw my parents be killed by Indians
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, okay, but is that true? I don't know. Maybe it
I can
is.
find out.
Maybe it's like, cause
It leans into her
trauma. Yeah.
her
being
PTSD
like
vibes.
very susceptible to like dig deep into that occult stuff. So that led me to believe it a little bit more, but yeah, he finds her and then Betty is like in a coma.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was gonna get into trouble, so she pretended to be sleepy.
She pretends to be
Like,
asleep.
You know, it's classic.
Yeah,
It's
when your
classic
parents are
little kid
angry, you
behavior.
pretend to be asleep in
Yeah.
your room.
That's what I do.
She takes it to the next fucking level.
Yeah.
Though. She's like, I'm just gonna
She
pretend to be asleep
commits
for
to the bit.
weeks.
Yeah.
fall limp in bed. Just like, I
mean, it was of the time to like beat your child if they were in trouble. She doesn't want to
true.
get beaten.
Yeah.
that's true. That's
And
true.
so she just pretends to be.
Especially what they were doing was like a whippable offense.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
dancing in the woods. Like that's
punishable by death.
That's whippable in the public like square.
Practicing witchcraft, punishable by death.
So yeah, I mean, I I understand pretending to be sleepy.
Yeah. And so then he brings the town doctor and he's like, I don't know what's going on. And it's like, it's possible this could be outside of my scope. And that's when we get the first old lady who, not Rebecca Nurse. It's like the one old lady who's like, it's the devil or whatever. What's her name?
I couldn't tell you which one she is. There was a lot of older women in this movie who telling things. I could tell you.
It's the one whose babies died.
That's
Yes.
Paris,
Oh,
is it not?
maybe? I guess I didn't really. Ann Putnam.
Is it Ann Putnam?
It's Ann Putnam. Yeah.
Yes.
Played by Frances Conroy, who is like there because her daughter, who's another little girl who I don't know.
Mary?
Ruth Putnam.
Close. Biblical name.
Right. And she's also in a coma for obviously the same reason. And she's like, it's probably Elizabeth and whoever, Goody Osborne.
All the good wives.
All the good wives. Goody Osborne and Goody, there's another one too in there. Martha Corey was at one point accused. She accuses a bunch of people.
Yeah.
She accuses all the midwives that helped with
Yeah.
her births that
Right.
ended up with
like stillborns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're like, I bet it was those women. I bet they're like witches or whatever. And then like, this is when Hale comes into play, I think.
yeah. The
Yeah, because they're accusing.
Putnam is. The little girls haven't woken up and started saying shit yet. They're still in their coma. Are you petting Fiona?
There's a cat here now. I'm petting it.
distracted by the child.
Yeah.
Little baby. We have a podcast cat now. Folks.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, so yes.
But yeah, they call it they call in Hale.
They call it Hale.
They call in Reverend Paris. Calls in Reverend Hale, who's like the larger reverend of the area.
And I think his whole shtick is that he comes in on these like demon possession cases, is all quote unquote scientific about it, and he's like, "Yeah, you're all good. No devil here."
That's kind of
his whole thing is to blow it out of proportion to the point of a like spectacle, and then shut it down like he
Yes.
defeated the devil. Like that's his whole shtick.
his religious function is to like what?
No, keep going.
Oh my god. So Reverend Hale shows up,
So
and
they call in Reverend Hale, who pulls up. He pulls up in his moped.
oh, is this the Pope's exorcist? Okay.
and we see and
Stuart, you should have pulled
Russell
up.
Crowe gets off his moped, steps in. It's like, I'm gonna kill a pig in front of this little girl.
Stuart, you watched the Pope's Exorcist, right?
I watched half of it and fell asleep.
It's like maybe the best movie ever made. Brian, this is a still from the Pope's Exorcist. If you haven't seen it.
Wow,
It is a truly large.
Wow.
It is a truly large Russell Crowe just driving around a moped. At one point, he drives his moped from Rome to Spain,
Wow.
which is several hundred miles on a moped that goes maybe 30 max.
Nice.
Great movie. Everyone should watch it. Pope's Exorcist, check it out. But Reverend Hale.
Yeah,
It was not Russell Crowe.
It was not Russell Crowe.
Missed opportunity.
I like how Stuart pulled that up and picked a scene from the movie with no sound effects that would have any evidence of what it is besides like just a horn.
You're welcome. He's played by Rob Campbell.
Yes.
But my first impression of this guy, which he steps off. I almost said steps off the moped. I'm still in Pope's Exorcist mode. Gets off like the horse carriage or whatever. And the first thing like in my brain about it, it's like, oh god, like this is. I mean, he is the guy that like kind of gets it ramped up, sort of. And I'm thinking like this is going to be like the Judge Danford of it all, like the guy who's like so convinced it's going to be witches. But we'll find out later, like he has a change of heart, sort of like he can at least be somewhat reasonable.
Well, I love this part. I think this character so good. He's so interesting because I don't think he believes it at all. Not even from the beginning. He's just trying to make his little
little show.
story. Yeah, it's his whole bit. It's his whole thing.
Because at the beginning, like he's like, witchcraft is really hard to prove. I'll come in and I'll tell you guys you're good.
Yeah.
And so he checks out these girls and he's ready to be like, it's just something. I don't know. It's not witchcraft though. And then I think all the girls detect like, oh, he's about to
spoil it.
Yeah, he's about to spoil our show and call us out. So we have to go to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he even says, because I think it's like, he talks to Samuel Ferris, like, were the girls out at night doing something? And he's like, the girls were dancing. He's like, dancing. And he's like, and, one of them was naked. One of them was naked. And it's like, yeah, but I think they were just sporting. And he like tells all of this to Reverend Hale.
Yeah.
And this all is just building up with all the girls of like, oh shit, like this is where we got to commit one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his whole thing was he was going to come in, talk to the girls, beat the slave into a confession, and then punish the slave. And then he's the hero who found the evil in the slave.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't want that. All the girls were watching this whole thing.
Yeah, because they first accused Tituba of being like the Satanist.
Yeah, put under pressure, Abigail accuses Tituba, which is just kind of like the fucked up thing that would happen is like, well, you just put it on the slave and then you kill the slave and we're good.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what Hale was expecting to happen. Like you can see it. Like he's like, okay, there we go.
This is a clear-cut, easy issue for us.
Yeah, we're here at the conclusion. It's going to be great.
Because they whip Tituba, who after a lot of pain confesses. She's like, yeah, I saw the devil.
Great performance.
She asked me to write in his book.
Too. Who played Tituba?
Charlene Woodward.
Yeah. That
who,
was amazing.
If I'm right, is she related to? Okay, I don't think she. I was curious if she was related to Alfred Woodard, who we talked about in How to Make an American Quilt 2 weeks ago. But I do not think they are related. Just the same last name.
Okay, gotcha.
But she pretends to confess, but then in a fit of revenge, does accuse Abigail. She's like, Abigail introduced me to the devil.
Yes.
And so then Abigail, now seeing like...
rightfully so. She's like, what?
Abigail's ready to kill Tituba.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going down for her. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm going, she's going with me.
Yeah.
And so Abigail, now back in the spotlight, is like, fuck it. I saw Goody whatever with the devil.
I saw Goody Proctor. I saw Goody Osborne.
I saw...
She starts going down the list.
Yeah, Goody Corey or Giles Corey's wife or whatever. Like they just start, and then like the little girls start waking up. They're like, I saw this person with the devil, and then I saw this person with the devil, and it's almost like
in their perspective, they're like, finally, we can wake up. We have a different part to play.
This is our out. Yeah. This is our out, and we have to take it. And so then. But to Hale's eyes, it's like it's working because the girl just woke up.
Yeah.
And so that is like the big.
And so Hale at this point, like who is, I think, naturally a skeptic, does kind of like get caught up in the excitement of it all, the hysteria.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I still think he doesn't believe. I think he's now his whole bit has been ruined. Yeah. He doesn't get his easy win over the quote unquote devil. And now he's going to have to work harder to prove this isn't. I think never once did he think that this was actual the devil. I think the entire time he's looking for his way out to prove that it's not the devil, because that's his entire job is that he's proving that it's not. And the entire time he's looking for the answer, which was why way later when he finds his out, he's like pissed. He's like, you knew the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, I've been like... People are dying.
So your read is like when he brings the judges in and everything, he's like, this is how we'll prove it through the sensible court of law.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
He's
interesting.
Like, he the entire time Hale is trying. The whole thing for him at the beginning was a bit. And when it blows out of proportion in the attic, he's like, well, damn it.
What can I do now?
He's like, well, I guess I'll bring in like a renowned legalese and we're going to like, because none of this is going to hold up in court.
Yeah.
And
holds
And
on.
then it does. And he's like, fuck.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, like, for my interpretation, it's like, I thought Hale was so committed into it until he spoke to the proctors about it. Because it's in that dinner scene where he's like, do you know your commandments? And they have that little tug back and forth. And I feel like at the end of that dinner scene, like, it's very subtle, but I feel like there's a change in Hale. It's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, these people are clearly fine, nice, good people who are Christian and don't believe in the devil. Like, what is going on?
I think around that point is when Hale starts having, if not a change of heart in the sense of like going from belief to disbelief, but kind of like, God, what have I started here? I need to just like expedite stopping this.
Yeah, reel it back.
But we haven't talked about John Proctor yet, who's introduced around this time as the girls really get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're introduced,
He gets introduced late.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's our main boy.
The hottest farmer in town.
Oh, my Lord.
He lives
Distractingly attractive.
outside of Salem. He's not like part of the community necessarily.
But what I love, it's like when they introduce each like dude's name.
Yeah.
They're introduced with the amount of acres they own.
Yes.
Which
John
is like
Proctor, 300 acres.
300 acres. Giles Corey, 600 acres. Like
Yeah.
how they all like that's part of their title is how
Yeah.
much land
Yeah.
they own. Which for back then is like the only title that exists in colonial America at that point, which I thought was pretty cool. But he's neighbors with Giles Corey.
Yes.
And he has 2 boys and a wife played by Joan Allen. Joan Allen in this movie.
Oh my
guys.
God.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Fucking because like it's very much like for like the first 2 acts of this movie, a backseat role.
Yeah.
That she then has to like through the back of her performance send it home.
Yeah.
With Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously, but it's like if that last scene with them on the beach doesn't work if one of the 2 are not like in lockstep with each other.
No, absolutely.
And it works so well when Hale is like, tell him to like confess. It's just like, God forbid me to. Or
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so fucking good. But yeah, we get info, like, because there's a conversation with Proctor and Abigail. This is before it all spirals completely out of control, where
Yeah.
she's like, you know, you want me, I want you. It's like we were never really together.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weakness on my part. My wife was sick. I did a bad thing, and that's it. It's over.
yeah.
It's not over for Abigail.
Not over
It's
for
not
Abigail.
over for Abigail. We're about to find out.
Which, again, she's kind of messed up. Her parents were slaughtered in front of her eyes.
Yeah.
She's only 17, was probably younger when the whole thing with John Proctor happened.
Yeah.
Like, can't really bash Abigail either in this situation.
You can't say no to a daddy.
That's it. I mean, he's so hot.
That's what it is. It's like he's a daddy and he's a daddy. Like, and that's all psychological things all come into play there.
Yes. And so John Proctor lives on the outskirts of town, not only in a physical sense, but like in a metaphorical sense.
Yeah.
He hasn't attended the church in quite some time.
Only 17 times in the
Yes.
last 16 months.
Yep.
And he has a lot of doubts about his faith and his, truth to self because of his affair with Abigail. He was unfaithful to his wife. He broke the commandment.
He's also just a very like skeptical person in
Yes.
general too. And he's not just in terms of like the superstition, but also like people's natural selves. Like I think he makes it clear. Paris makes like a comment to Abigail. It's like, do you know, like there are people in this town that would see me off the pulpit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Proctor is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, listen, like I helped build that church and all Paris could do was talk about how he wanted golden candlesticks.
Yes.
And
Instead
then
of pewter. Pewter wasn't good enough for him.
right. And so like, yeah, I had some difficulty going to church after that whole fiasco, which
Yes.
is like
Totally
fair.
fair.
Yeah.
Seeing that religion was being used for personal favor,
Yeah.
which is what what they keep doing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
It was more about the ornamental aspect of it than it was like, the roof over their head.
Totally.
And while he's on the outskirts, he doesn't really hear about the beginning of the witch trials necessarily.
The first conversation is really like, did you hear about what those crazy towners are doing?
Yeah, he's like,
They're talking about devil work. He's like, whoa.
He's like, what?
I'm glad we're out here. This is why we're not going to church.
Yeah.
He's just like, so Mary, who's his servant, Mary Warren, is one of the girls.
Yes.
And so she's coming by every day and like doesn't really talk to him about it. But then someone comes by and says, you hear what they're saying over there? They got like 5 women on trial. And he's like, what?
It's like, what is this nonsense?
And he's like, Mary, you need to just like tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Come on. All right. Mary's kind of like, oh, well, I am telling the truth. And he's like, all right, whatever. We'll drop this for now. But in town, the law shows up.
The judges, yeah.
And I like how medieval they make like their posse look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I kind of think about it, and like this would be like right when gunpowder's starting to be a thing because they
Yeah.
were holding like muskets,
Yeah.
but they also had like chainmail on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so cool. I'm like, is that historically accurate? Because I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it would be
Yeah.
historically accurate. Like, they
Like
didn't,
we're transitioning from the medieval time to like a more modern era.
yeah. But yeah, there's 3 judges. One that will really get to know Judge Danford, played by Paul Schofield, who like
Thomas.
fucking Thomas. Wait, why did I say? What did I say? Yeah, Judge Thomas Danford,
Yeah.
played by Paul Schofield, who fucking eats in this movie.
Oh, so good.
Like, I'm trying to think of like what's another like actor within the 96 time period that's like, because like his job in this movie is to like impose just unwavering authority.
Oh, absolutely.
This guy says something and you do it, and he may have no guards around to enforce it, but you still do it because it's fucking
Because it's him.
Because it's him.
True.
Who else can do that? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of actors who can, but like it literally, like I say this a lot, like backbone of his performance is all of that. Because like you feel like if you don't do what this guy says you're to do, like how many guards they bring with them? Enough? I was like in the side of like, you know, if I was John Proctor in the situation, be like, all right, we're boarding up the windows, get
Yeah.
your rifles out, get your knives, we're going to fucking defend our house. And I'm thinking like, realistically, how many guards they bring with them? Is it enough?
Yeah.
But it's because of Paul Schofield's performance. It's like, you know, that's not an option.
Yeah.
And it's something about how this guy acts.
Well, again, another like example of how closely this movie rides a line between being like really amazing and super corny and ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because like when he keeps shutting people down, there is a little part in like in the back of my head where I'm like, you know, you could just say no. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
leave.
right,
Like, what are you
exactly.
talking about? Like,
Right.
I know I'm not a witch. Actually, I'm gonna go back inside.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about it? But no, it is through the writing and the performance that it's just from a movie sense very clear that
Yeah.
that
You
is not
say,
an option.
Yeah, you
at all.
can't say no to this guy.
Yeah.
And like literally that scene where
It's a rule of the movie.
he makes Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder turn their backs and they have Joan Allen walk in. It's like only that guy in that performance could make that
Could sell it.
Yeah.
sell that whole scene.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because that is a really good scene.
It's a pivotal scene of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the titular Crucible.
It is indeed.
The Crucible is, you know, in the historical sense,
trial.
it's where you'd walk down the row and you would just you would walk through the tunnel and you would face torment on all sides and you have to make it to the other side.
Yeah.
And it is the row in the church that she walks down.
Nice.
Because it is technically Joan Allen who walks the Crucible in this movie.
Yes.
Good shit, Jeff. Good shit.
Um,
The other 2 judges are Judge Samuel Sewall and Judge Hathorne.
and they don't fucking matter.
They don't-
We don't
they
even know how
don't
to talk
really
about them.
Judge Hathorne, it's funny how like it's initially presented as like there's Judge Danford who's like the centerpiece, foundational, fundamental, like he is like the stoic, cold, like I will hear all sides of the argument and make a decision. And you have George Gaines who plays Judge Sewall on the good angel side of the conscience.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I think these people are kind of crazy. Like maybe we should listen. Then there's Judge Hathorne, played by Robert Bruler. And he has like the creepiest,
Yeah.
it's the creepiest little demeanor.
Creepy little guy.
Because he's like, I don't even know what a witch is. Then how do you know you're not one? Like,
Yeah.
so like he's like the other side of it. It very quickly skews, like I'd say in Act 2, where Judge Danford's like, all right, I made up my mind. Which is like this town is
Yeah.
made up his mind in the sense of like, not that he believes it's real, but made up his mind. It's like, this is the story we're gonna go with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of land to be shared.
Because
Yeah.
what
You know, I think the law's called in because they're like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, law's gonna fix this, but immediately becomes corrupt and about land management.
Yeah, because to everyone, like Judge Danforth sees like this could be my mark in history as I ridded Satan from this area.
Yeah, it's a history book moment for Danforth.
I could be famous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reverend Paris sees that he could get vengeance on those who, kind of scoffed at his parish ship.
And Jeffrey Jones, Thomas Putnam, is going to get land out of it.
Yeah. Jeffrey Jones, I think the third time he's been in this the movie we've covered. After Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice and something, yeah.
I really quickly want to sidebar about Jeffrey Jones, who is a molester and was arrested for it. Bad guy. But if you look at him as an actor, it's funny that he basically is most well known for playing the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, yeah.
And being the dad in Beetlejuice and being very funny in both those movies. And then he's mostly otherwise just in like historical, plays roles like this.
Got a weird looking face.
Very funny, like back and forth in that guy's career. I just want to say.
Peter Vaughn, who plays Giles Corey, for folks who may know, he is one of the
Maester Aemon
Targaryen on the wall in Game of Thrones. Yeah,
one of the best performances in that show for his last scene where he's having visions of Aegon.
100%. I absolutely agree. Very good performance. And then in this movie, when he's like, more weight.
Oh yeah,
just like an old pro.
Like everyone brings so much more to this movie than it probably deserved, except for the screenplay. But like it for the better.
Oh, totally.
This is a movie that gets away with not being interesting cinematically by being interesting thematically and purely on a vibes basis.
I mean, it's a classical work of literature. Like, I mean, it's like
you get swept up in the story that you're like,
it's one of the 4 plays I've read in my life. You know what I mean?
Essentially.
Yeah. Right.
I really enjoyed this movie. So we're essentially like really in the mania. And all the powerful in the town are using the girls as an opportunity to, rid. Because there's, one of the first people gets accused is like kind of the local homeless woman.
Yeah.
The vagabond who just kind of goes around asking for change.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we can get rid of her using this. And they're like, did you see her with the devil? And they're like, yeah, we saw her with the devil. All right, well, we can get rid of these 3 women who were midwives when, God, what's her name's? Putnam's children died. Babies were stillborn.
And then there's like the guy with the 2 crutches. And what I love, it's the parallel of like, there's the court scenes where they're like trying to defend themselves and the girls are like, I see them with the devil. And then it cuts to the next person that's going to be accused.
Yeah.
And for like the guy who plays like, it's like the differently abled guy,
the old
George
man?
Jacobs, William Preston, who plays him. George Jacobs, who's like he can only walk with 2 crutches. He like is saying hi to somebody, and then a fire like crackles a little bit, and Thomas Putnam sees it, then he's in the court, and it's Betty Paris who's like, I saw him climb in my window, and he had his way with me, and it was very evil and bad. And Jacobs, it's like, well, Your Honor, I'm on crutches. How would I climb in the window?
Like I've said this during an earlier episode of the show, but the thing that gets me most in movies is sad old men.
Oh,
yeah.
Sad old men really like.
I didn't even think about that. I was like, this Jeff would fucking weep at this part.
I was really upset by this. Like, just like this kind of old guy who can barely, like, he has no teeth.
Yeah.
And he has a crutch for both hands. Like, the first scene when you see him, he has such joy when he's like, hey, Mr. Putnam. Like, he just seems like a genuinely nice person who's lived to an age despite all of his disabilities, and then they hang him for it. Like, it actually like really upset me watching it.
Yeah, because he's like, how would I climb in a window? I have crutches. And Betty's like, he sent his spirit.
Yeah, he's like,
convenient.
Yeah. Well, and I believe the like motivation bus behind his death was land, right? He was one of the ones that had a lot of land.
So.
Yeah. And then so they used the spirit thing to get rid of that guy. Now spirits
now they've
are
introduced
rule. Now they don't
spirits.
Now they don't even have to be in the same room.
Yeah.
So it's really this little court of people who are using their power to get what they want,
right?
But also creating new rules for themselves that make it even worse now.
Yeah. And the girls are swept up with both the power that they now possess, but also the fear that if like at any point they drop it, they're the first who are going to be punished.
And also, I liked in that same scene, like when what's her face, Betty is still sleeping, and Abigail and the other girls are up there, and she like starts screaming way early on.
Yeah.
Abigail like really threatens the girls that if
Yeah.
anyone drops the act, like she herself, Abigail, is going to
Kill them all.
at night. It's that, you know,
Yeah, they're fearful for their lives too, because she says
she's
like
crazy.
and this is a
She
task
says,
on Winona.
"You
She's
know I'll
like,
do it."
Yeah, it's like I saw my parents' heads get bashed in by India. You don't think I'll fucking murder you, bitches?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I'll
for
do
real.
it. It's like, and you believe her,
Yeah.
and you fully believe her. Yeah, full hysteria. It's like this montage bit where we're
Yeah.
going back and forth between the people who are being accused and when they're getting their day in court, and
Meanwhile, John Proctor's on the outskirts of town just scything his feet. Like, it literally will just cut to him being like,
I love it when we got to John Proctor. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, he's just a man doing chores.
he's gonna get out of this unscathed.
It's funny that we as a culture now only associate the scythe with like the Grim
Death.
Reaper.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is a practical tool with practical purpose.
cutting wheat. Yeah.
Yeah, for killing. Children of the Corn, I think, was a big thing with that.
Children of the Corn partially also ruined the scythe.
Yeah, Children of the Corn partially ruined the site.
If you guys want to see a good scythe murder movie, watch Thanksgiving from last year.
Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving. The Eli Roth.
Have you guys seen Thanksgiving?
No.
Thanksgiving's about a killer turkey.
It is.
No, this is like a high budget movie.
But Thanksgiving, though, is pretty good.
It's fine. But Thanksgiving is a high budget movie set in like a Salem, Massachusetts-esque town where a guy dressed like a pilgrim starts murdering people after a brutal Black Friday where 5 people are killed in a stampede. Nice. And everyone associated with the stampede starts getting killed by a pilgrim with a scythe.
I love that.
Great.
I love that.
What a pitch.
It's one of those movies. It's one of those like incredible slasher movies where like dudes will just be standing around and a fucking head will fly through the window. Highly recommend. It's a lot of fun.
I'm trying to think of the next major bit that happens, but I honestly think it's when Hale goes to the Proctors.
That is what's next. It
Yeah.
brings John Proctor into the action.
Because at this point, it's,
I mean, the big thing that we've glossed over is that Abigail has told John Proctor, we were just messing around. There's no devil. We were just chilling, and now
she does openly tell him
Yes.
that.
she's like, yeah, we were just sporting. This is wild, but also
I'm the
kind of
finger
gonna
of
keep
God.
saying it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like I'm the finger of God now. Like, what are you gonna do about it, bitch? And kind of in that way too, where she is like, I'm the finger of God. Like, what are you gonna do about it? It's
John Proctor's whole thing is, yes, he could just end this shenanigans. It's implied that he could end the shenanigans because he's that mythical folk hero of the town, and everyone
Yeah.
will believe him when he tells the truth.
yeah, he has a good name in the town still.
But if he does that, he's going to have to openly talk about his adultery.
Yeah.
And so his whole arc is like, how many lives is it worth before I start talking about my adultery?
Yeah.
The answer is 14.
Yes.
Oh shit, Brian, that is actually really true. I didn't even think about it that way. It's like, yeah, it really is.
He is willing to.
Yeah.
He does not want to talk, and that is his wife's entire thing, because she keeps talking about, it's not me that has to forgive you, it's you. And she's using like really good Christian language for brother. Like you gotta talk about this and make this right.
You
because
have everything. You can stop this.
the fact that you feel bad is starting to become a real bad excuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I've forgiven you. You need to go be chill with this right now.
Yeah. Because it's like then they start giving out names of like prominent people in the town. Like, when Rebecca Nurse, who's like a nun, essentially.
Yeah,
She
literally
gets
grandma.
accused. Yeah.
Grandma to 26.
Yeah.
She, from the beginning, was like, this is children being children. I've worked with children all my life. Like, she was the conscience. She was the piggy of the town.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so they're like, okay, this is fucking bananas. If Rebecca Nurse is getting accused, then
Because
like,
Giles Corey is like, Rebecca's been accused.
Yeah, and then Giles Corey's wife gets accused.
Yeah.
And so then that's when like Giles, John Proctor are all kind of like teaming up together, and they're like, okay, we have to go like talk this out with somebody. And that's when Mary Warren shows up to Proctor, and that's when she gives Elizabeth the poppet.
Yeah.
This little doll that she just gives her. It's like, here, I made this for you or whatever. And then Abigail shows up. She makes one last like plea for John Proctor. It's like, hey, is it he shows up to her shows up to him? Because I think what gets brought up, it's like, I heard my wife's name get brought up.
Yeah, he like shows up to town, on the outskirts of town, like gives Abigail a look, like, meet me out in the forest.
Yeah.
So then they do. And John Proctor's all pissed. 'Cause he's like, why are you coming after my wife? I know you're doing this.
I didn't kill my wife.
I know you're doing this intentionally now.
Yeah.
Stop, or I'm gonna hurt you. A lot of
He basically
implication of violence.
He basically tells Winona, if my wife's name gets brought up, I will kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then his wife's name gets brought up.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm the hand of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very impressive scene from Winona.
Because it's in the middle of
great
court. She like stumbles into court and she has like a needle in her stomach.
Yeah, she has stabbed herself.
Right. But then like when Hale then goes to the Proctors about it, and they're like, why are you? Oh, and we forgot. So Mary Warren, after she gives Elizabeth the poppet, she then like kind of confesses to Proctor about the whole thing, being like, yeah, this whole thing is a ruse. I never saw any spirits. None of us ever saw any spirits.
But we're scared of Abigail. We're scared people are being hung. Like we're in trouble now.
But even Mary knows this has gone too far, and that's when he like grabs her by like the shirt, and it's like, come to your senses, woman. You're gonna testify before the court. And
what a way with words.
Right? Yeah, literally kind of what he does. He just like badgers this woman into being like, you're gonna testify. And then Hale shows up. And that's when, like, I love this scene.
Yeah.
So good.
I love this scene so much because he shows up by himself.
Your name's wife was mentioned.
Like, he says, like, such a specific phrasing of it. It's like, your wife's name got somewhat brought up.
Yeah.
Which I love that because it's like, we all know what that means.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, you're just trying to be coy with it. Like, okay, my wife's name got brought up as a witch, right? As a Satanist.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't have to play coy around here. Like, just your wife's name got brought up somewhat in the court.
And again, I think it's because
Hale
he doesn't believe it at all. And he's I think he is equal parts embarrassed to be coming up to John Proctor, who has been his homie from when he arrived. And he's like, so what are we going to do now?
Because it is at the beginning of the movie where Hale and Proctor meet at the very beginning of the movie. It's like, maybe you can bring some sense into Salem.
Yeah.
And Hale's like, oh, haha, maybe. And now they're here.
And now
where he's like kind of having to.
Hale has completely botched his whole thing. He's completely off script at this point.
14 people are sentenced to death.
Yeah, he's like, this is not how it's supposed to be. He's like, maybe. And I think my read is when Hale comes in and he starts like accusing them of not being godly enough.
Yeah.
I think it's because Hale is super frustrated because he can't find an out for this. And if these people were just like super solid members of the church, maybe he could use their word that it was all.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's my out. And then he's like, actually, they haven't been to church in very long. Is their word actually good enough to stand up against this judge?
John Proctor only knows 9 out of 10 commandments.
See, like, I can't disagree with you, Brian. It is a very good point. And like, I don't know. For me, I just felt to my core, it's like he was in it the whole time until he talked to the Proctors. Only because like for me, the way I read it, it was like he shows up and he starts asking them questions like, so I've noticed you've only been to church 17 times in the last 16 months. So, like, you want to talk about that? And you're like, well, Reverend Paris is a dickwad who only cares about money. It's like, he's a minister.
Well, I think what that is like
Paris does kind of agree with him, but he can't say it.
Yeah, and Hale Hale wants to get out of this, but it's not going to work if John Proctor is,
Doesn't play along.
Bad-mouthing the
is
minister.
bad-mouthing the people who are currently freakishly in charge of the whole situation. And I did, for a lot of this movie, I did think similarly that like Hale is probably in on it. But when this conversation ends, right, and they leave, and John says, actually, Hale, just so you know, Abigail came to me, told me that this was all fake. The immediacy of Hale's reaction, the relief, the stress, like his change of like, why did you not say this sooner?
Yes.
Like that was not a believer whose beliefs have been shattered. That was like, thank God.
Yeah, this guy's
Someone knows,
has something,
has sense. Like, thank the Lord. And also, he's kind of pissed that he's just been sitting on his farm this whole time,
siphoning his field.
you gotta. So that's what I think. Like, keyed me into like he never. I think it's important for the story and the theme that nobody actually believes in witchcraft.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like,
Yeah.
that everyone's just using this for personal gain.
Yeah.
There's no one who actually believes in the story.
There's no one.
No one actually was afraid that communists were invading America.
Right.
They just like would accuse each other of communism too.
And I mean, well, maybe the mob, the mass believes it.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of the people in charge actually believe it, which is, I mean, shown when Abigail later comes to the committee and is like, it was, this person,
And they're like,
no, it was not.
Yeah.
No believing person, even who believes a little bit, would be like, no.
Yeah.
They're just.
Because when there's this is jumping ahead of it, we'll come back.
Yeah.
But when there's the execution sequence, the way that the crowd is just like cheering and hooting and hollering, like it's entertainment.
Yeah.
They're just so caught up in this event that they don't even care what it is or like that this is their friends getting executed. They're like, yeah, this is great. This is a good show that we're putting together.
Yeah. It's
people like to
the mob
believe,
effect.
people like to believe in a movement and go along with it.
Yeah. So then it's when like he sees like the needle in the puppet, Hale does.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, like Abigail was stabbed, like came into the court with a needle in her stomach.
Yeah.
Like, and you have this. And he's like, oh, but Mary Warren made that and brought that in. And Mary's like, Abigail gave it to me.
Yeah, she made it next to Abigail.
And Abigail saw her.
Abigail
She was
saw where the needle was.
resting the needle.
Yeah.
And Hale was like, again, believes Mary, I think.
Yeah.
But is like, but this looks so bad.
Yes.
Right. I believe you.
He's like,
but
trying to
this
tell
looks
me
so
exactly
bad.
this story.
Yeah. And then he says a line where it's like, I think it's the commandment bit where he tries to like say all the commandments and he forgets the adultery one. He's like, and he says like, well, between the two of us, we can all like, memorize all 10 commandments. It's not even like, it's barely much a scratch. And Hale says like, a scratch in a foundation cannot be ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was where I'm just like, you fucking asshole, man. Come on. Like,
Again,
He's like,
he's
like
got
to
his own
Brian's
shit.
point, he's like, I need a solid alibi to get out of this,
Yeah.
and you're providing cracks in my foundation.
I need a perfect farmer out here to be
Yeah.
like, stop it, city folk.
Yeah.
Because you're idiots.
Because then once they leave the house and he tells Hale that what Abigail told him, a cart or Giles Corey runs over and it's just like, they took my wife.
they arrested Rebecca Nurse and all
then
those guys.
A cart comes over the bend, flanked by horses, with a bunch of women just tied up in the back. And they're like, we've come for your wife, John Proctor. And Reverend Hale's just like, whoa. I just talked to these people. What do you mean? And they're like, by order of the court. She's coming with us.
Yeah. This is the moment you realize Hale actually has no power anymore.
Yeah.
Like zero.
Yeah.
No one is listening to his shtick about we're going to prove that the devil's not even here.
Yeah.
No. He's
Right.
completely lost control.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The genie's
Proctor
officially
kind
out of the
of
bottle.
loses his shit.
Yeah.
And tries to defend his wife, who is just like, John, I'm going to go with them.
Yeah.
To save us.
The one voice of reason, like maybe don't start a fist
Yes.
fight with these guys.
It's only going to hurt our claim later.
Yeah.
She's like, I will go with them and we'll prove our innocence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's when he like goes to Mary and it's like slapping her across the face. It's like, you're gonna testify in court, young lady.
She's Bart Simpsoning him like,
You're gonna do Yeah, literally.
Exactly that.
Yeah. So then him, Giles Corey, and Mary Warren all go to like the courthouse and they're like, we have like viable proof that this whole thing is fake.
Yeah.
And Judge Danford is like, well, let's break for recess and see what this is about. And obviously like Abigail like sees this and she's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. So then they go into the judge's like private quarters.
Yeah.
And they start that conversation. And what I love, it's like, you know, Proctor then points to Mary. It's like, she came to me and said this whole thing was fake, so we know it's fake. And Giles Corey, it's like, and I have it on good evidence on a witness that can tell that Thomas Putnam wanted to accuse George Jacobs so he could get his land.
Yeah.
and Giles Corey kind of puts the whole case together for them.
Because he's
And-
like a Harvard scholarly
no.
man.
No, did you plot how he knows all this stuff? It's my favorite point in this movie. He has been a plaintiff in court 36
yes.
times
That's right.
for matters of like $5 to $10.
Yeah. Because people keep trying to move.
Yeah, people keep trying to move in
the
on his
line.
land.
Oh,
And so he
yeah.
keeps taking people to court
Yeah.
and has learned so much about the legal system
That's
as a
right.
result.
That's
Yeah.
right. I'm not a
Okay,
lawyer,
yeah.
but I might as well be.
Because
Yeah.
Thomas or Judge Danforth is like, you're very scholarly about
Yeah.
this. Where was your training? And he says, I got the best training there is in the court itself.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to courts 36 times as a plaintiff. And he's like, your father once tried a case of mine. I'm sure he told you about it. And Judge Danforth's like, he didn't.
Like,
And
no.
it's
Like, I think I
Giles
got
like-
5 pounds off of it.
And Giles like, what do you mean? I got 5 pounds out of it. And just like, well, fuck, you got 5 pounds out of it? My dad probably dealt with that in an afternoon.
I was like, very impressive.
But they present
Yeah.
they present
But
a
it's- he presents
document that's
very
well
good
written.
legal. Yeah, a very good legal case of like Mary Warren's testimony plus all these people in the town who have who vouched for the validity of the accused.
Yeah.
It's a very like well put together document. The judge is so skeptical, like he does not want to believe it because then it shatters his validity as a judge in this case. Like,
Right.
he's been sentencing these people to death for witchcraft.
Yep.
If this document is true, then he's
been an idiot.
yeah, then he's been doing this wrong.
Yeah. Like he's been mega dumb.
So, but the evidence is like overwhelming. So he does agree to like hear it out in private.
Yeah. Well, he looks. Is this when he looks at Abigail? Is this like the scene?
Yeah, this is well. He says
Well, not
like
in the court.
we're
not
in
in the
like
court
the little
yet.
side room, and he's like, we will take this back to the.
Oh yeah, because the farmer who is the plaintiff,
Yeah.
36 times, he starts talking about like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's like, contempt of the court, and he's like, well, I can't be. We're not in court.
Contempt if we're not
And he goes, fine, then let's bring this to court. And the next scene, they're in court.
No, it's the one joke of this movie.
Yeah.
so
is he's like, you cannot find a contempt of court if we aren't in court, and it just cuts to Jennifer and says, fine. Smash cut to a wide shot of courtroom with them all standing in it.
It was so good.
It was pretty good.
It's
It
a
was
good-
actually really
it's
good.
a really
bit.
good joke.
Yeah. And it's just like those folks and the girls.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no other like townsfolk.
Well, I
in
don't
there
think the
with them.
girls are in there yet.
Well, isn't this when they start like turning on Mary?
Yes.
Yeah, the girls are there.
No, because I know the girls aren't there because they're talking to the two of them, Giles and John Proctor. Mary is off in a different room, and all the girls walk in and basically stare at Mary.
Yeah. That was scary
And
as
like
hell.
are basically like, we're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
And Mary like runs off into the room up to the front.
That's right.
And that's when they go to Mary's testimony. But like Mary now has this knowledge of like the girls are all threatening her if she doesn't play along.
Yeah, they just like quietly come into the room that
Yes.
she's in and all stand around her. It's very scary.
It is very scary. And one of the things that we just missed a little bit was like, they're like, okay, Giles, who's your witness against Thomas Putnam? It's like, I will never give it away.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well then now we are going to hold you in contempt of court and you're going to be jailed until you tell us who gave you, like, tell us that name of that witness. And so they take him away to jail.
Yeah.
And then it's just Proctor and then Mary who comes in, and then all the girls behind. And that's when he says, okay, Your Honor, like, I have even more evidence.
Yeah.
He's like, I know Abigail.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, wink.
I have known her, sir.
I have known her, sir.
I have known her.
And he's like, my wife was sick, and Abigail was.
God help me, I lusted.
Yeah, I lusted for her, and it's like, but then my wife who found out then sent her off to the high road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so she's holding a grudge, and I think all of this could be
right, what happens is like because the whole thing that sparks that on, it's like, this is the lies of a whore.
right. Well,
I have to go back even further because first they question Mary, who tells her story,
But not really,
Kind of
though,
not
right?
really.
No, she tells the truth, and then they all start lobbing further accusations at her. They start being like, "Are you sure you are not possessed by the devil to say these lies?"
Right.
all of this is kind of happening in the same time.
Yeah, it's all-
and
yeah.
No one is staying on the same argument
And
for
we-
very
Something that
long.
I noticed here is
Yeah.
this whole section from when they show up to like the judges to where we get all the way to where Elizabeth comes in, all the way to all that point. That's like an hour of the movie or some shit like that.
Yeah,
It's like
and it's almost real time. Like it's an hour of the movie, and it's out an hour.
of real time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was thinking like this doesn't feel like it's taking that long, but like we've been in this like chunk
This scene,
for
yeah.
a while.
Yes.
Like this has been going on for a hot minute.
Well, I mean, it's a play.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But it felt good.
It would.
Yeah, no, like
It felt
you're
good.
totally
though.
right.
Like,
It
didn't
is
feel
very
like-
good.
It's
but-
like when are we going to cut away to something else? Like it was just all like convincing all the time.
Because the exact process is Mary confesses, and then Abigail and the judges accuse her of potentially being possessed by the devil.
Right.
And now that the lob is being thrown back on Mary, we get this one of the few like interesting shots in the movie is the spinning one around
Yeah.
her, and just everybody over her shoulder saying these different things, and she doesn't know what to believe. She at that point just confesses and says, "Yeah, I was with the devil.
Yeah.
The devil from John Proctor."
Yeah.
And throws it back on John Proctor.
Oh, Mary Warren?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because this is when, like, the bird or whatever
and-
fucking spits her, and they all run out.
Yeah.
And they're like screaming and wailing. They're like, oh my God. And that was when we get like the almost like midsummer scene where she's a really good scene because then Danforth like fully into it. It's like, why are they repeating what you saying? Have you bewitched them? She's like, no, like this is all fake. And then I almost felt like so bad for Mary in this thing because like when she does, when she does give
She
in,
was just going along with her friends and like now has to be the one voice of reason and then gets threatened with death for it. And so she just goes back to.
I mean, she's in a lose-lose. John Proctor like beat her.
Yeah.
as well. I mean,
and so then like they all run out into the water.
well,
Yeah.
that's
that's how this ends.
That's how this ends. But Mary like turns it onto John Proctor, who then confesses his adultery
Yes.
to be like.
She doesn't call him out to be on the devil until they're in the water.
Right.
That's when he gets lobbed as like no, because they're still in the courtroom.
I don't think he gets accused of being with the devil until they're in
Because
the water.
once he loses Mary, that's when he has to shift to the horror argument.
I thought it's when he loses Giles that he has to switch
No,
to
it's
the horror
Mary.
argument.
Yeah.
Because Mary is his like essentially his story, and now that Mary is like goes back with the girls, he has to resort to like, well, it doesn't even matter what Mary has to say because I can prove that Abigail is wrong.
Because I'm confused. It's only because like when they run out to the water,
The
and
water
they
is
all
the
run
last
out,
thing that
but they
happens.
run out after them.
Yep.
That's when Mary is like, okay, all right, I was possessed with the devil, and it was John Proctor who possessed me, and now I've seen the light. And she goes up and she hugs Abigail in the water, and that's when Danforth and they all surround her. It's
Yeah.
like, John Proctor,
Okay.
are you
Yes.
with the devil?
You're correct
So
about
that's why
this.
it's like he doesn't get accused of being with the devil until like the very
But he
last
loses
bit.
Mary.
He loses
does
Mary.
lose
'cause
Mary.
Mary literally is screaming. Is
Yes.
completely. I mean that
Hysterical at that point. Yeah.
Has lost control of Mary, and so he goes.
Yeah,
And he's like, these are all lies from a whore.
and she's like, you accuse Abigail Williams of adultery, of one of the sins. Like, what is justice? Which we've already talked about.
I have known her, sir. Yeah. And that's when
The judge is like, would your wife Elizabeth know this. And
Because the judge looks at Abigail and says, if this is true,
That's like the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, like you're done.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this, which super dumb that he would say that because then Abigail has to like, triple down. But it does set up the fact that like, if this is true, witches aren't real.
yes.
Right. And so then
It is funny the
I
priorities.
think it's the best scene.
It is.
Yeah.
The best scene of the movie.
Yes.
Where they bring Elizabeth
Yeah.
Proctor in,
Joan Allen.
who's been like in jail for a while. Because he even says, we missed another bit. Because it's kind of important. He, right before Danford allows Proctor to give his evidence, he says, before you even say anything, I have it on good evidence that your wife is pregnant.
Right.
Which means she is saved for at least a year. She will not be hanged for at least a year.
Yeah.
Knowing that, are you still going to testify all the things you're going to say? Or is there so like, yeah, I'm still going to testify and all this stuff. So then flashback forward, they bring Elizabeth Proctor in and Danford, Paul Scofield in this role, says like, turn your backs around.
Yeah.
You're not going to look at her, which is like,
You look at me.
it's like objectively like a smart move of like, we're not going to have anybody, like this is just me and Elizabeth. Like we're not going to have anybody fucking intimidating anybody. And he's like, okay, has your husband been adulterous? And she goes on and on about like, well, like
I
was
thought maybe,
sick.
and like,
I was a cold woman or whatever. Like I made it a very loveless household. It's like, okay, but did your husband cheat on you?
I fired her because I thought that he might have lust for her.
Right. It's like, but do you know if he did?
And she says, no.
No. And then
John Proctor loses
so
and he
good.
turns around. He's like, I confess. And she just goes, oh God, and gets pulled away.
yeah,
it's like they both know at that moment. It's like that was the crux.
Yeah,
of
that was it.
She thought
But-
that he was. She thought that she was defending him. She thought the accusation was that he was an adulterer. But little did she know that was the
accusation
the
on
proof.
Abigail. Yeah, the proof.
I love that in that moment Hale jumps in there and it's like, it's a natural lie to tell.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
she was,
yeah.
and it's like everyone knows.
Yeah, it's like she's defending him
Yeah.
like it's a natural, and it was like it just like it's like
And he's like, but like I can't, in the Judge Thomas's eyes, he's like, this was a court. You can't lie in the court.
yeah,
Like what am I supposed to do now? I have a lie, a court full of lies. Like he really looks bad if he doesn't stick to the letter.
He's got
now.
to stick
at
to
least in his mind.
He's got to stick to the first lie.
Yeah.
yeah. And so then that's when all the girls run out
Yes.
Yeah.
into
Say they're
the
being
water.
attacked by a
water.
bird.
They're being attacked by a bird.
That is Mary.
It's the second interesting camera choice in this movie. Is the
in
like
the Raptors?
crazy like
Yeah.
wire cam stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then they all run out. Proctor runs after Mary, and then she separates from him. It's like, no, I was possessed by the devil, and Proctor was the one who sent him on me. It was Proctor who wrote my name in the devil's book. And she goes and hugs Mary, and it was great on Winona Ryder's performance. What
do I do with this now?
Yeah, and then the judges are all standing there on the shore, and Danford looks at Proctor, and he's like, John Proctor, have you made a pact with the devil? And he says like, this whole fucking town has lost his mind, and in this town, God is dead, and everyone loses their shit.
You are the Antichrist.
Oh my God, it was like I was fucking yes, let's go.
It's so good. I mean, John
like-
Proctor finally cracked.
Yeah.
It's so
Lost
good.
losing it.
It's like the sacrificial cross that it's like, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, we're so hyped that he's gonna die for his beliefs.
Yeah, and so then I think it's the cutaway to like the confession, right?
Well, no, it cuts to we get a bit where Reverend Hale sees Abigail, and as he's riding around town, checking out like the houses of the empty.
Yeah.
And Abigail then goes to the judge and is like, Reverend Hale's wife was with the devil.
Yeah, because Hale, because Hale is now fully
They're
like
working
this
against
is
her.
This
like
is all
this
a
is
lie.
really nuts. Like heads are gonna roll. Heads
Yeah.
have rolled at this point.
And the judge is like, you're mistaken. Minister's wife can't be with the devil.
Yeah.
Because, he's politically protected.
And it's that point where it's like, to your point, Brian, nobody fucking believes this.
This is none of this is real.
Nobody believed this was ever real.
At this point, enough people have been killed that
we get a montage of the hangings.
Yeah.
right?
yeah. And the judges are like, the girls are now kind of excommunicado in the town.
Yeah, nobody will even look
Nobody
at.
wants to, like, if Abigail starts walking towards people, they run away from her. 'cause they're afraid
she's gonna out them. Out
yeah,
them.
she's gonna accuse them. So she's now like, persona non grata in the town. Nobody wants to speak with her. The town looks significantly empty.
Yeah.
Because so many people have been accused and locked away. Hundreds in real life. Until eventually, like the mayor, like the governor, shows up and it's like, we gotta stop this shit.
I don't want to glaze over the hanging scenes because that's where like we see like the shot how it's posed where it's like we see just the feet drop and Abigail's in the background looking at it all, and with every hanging it's like the crowd's still like unwaveringly cheering, but Abigail, who starts like this montage like kind of in like a weird smile, like yes, this is my power, the very end of it it's like, oh god, what have I done? Like, it, especially when they hang George Jacobs, the guy on crutches, it's just like fucking hell, man. Like,
yeah. And then I mean, after that scene ends with like a lovely, like really quiet shot of the crowd who's not cheering anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just really rough.
It's like the hangings have taken the toll on the town.
Yeah.
And it's made it very clear. It's like, oh, like this isn't like a movement anymore. This is a thing that like we're just killing people.
Yeah. Everybody wants it to be over after the hangings. So they're like, okay, that was
that was
a thing
cool,
that happened.
but no more.
But we're done with that, right?
Yeah.
And then like you said, Abigail accuses Hale's wife, and that's like the obvious, like, yeah, right.
Yeah, no, sorry.
I'm gonna pretend you didn't even say that. And then she gets all the money from her uncle Samuel Paris, and is like able to bribe the guard where Proctor's being held. It's like there's a ship that's gonna take you to Barbados. We can go because she poses it like her and him are gonna go together, right? Yeah. And he is like, the only place I'll see you after this is hell.
Yeah.
Like, too fucking good.
Yeah.
But then it comes out that like
Becca said that line goes.
that line goes hard in the paint. It comes out that like Abigail ran away, and it makes Samuel Paris look pretty bad. That she ran away, but like the hangings are going to continue. Yeah. And even Samuel
until morale improves.
and even like Samuel Paris is like, maybe we should stop.
Maybe we should chill
on the hangings, Like the Proctors are very like,
we just wanted some people arrested so that I could get some light.
right. It's like we've done enough, right? And Danford's like, and he says this line too, which also went hard. It's like, I will not rest until like the devil's been ridden out of this town, or
he
something
says,
like
I will not rest until this town has turned back to God.
Yeah. And that's where it's like Danford's like full villain mode.
Yeah.
And Paris is concerned that if John dies, people will riot against him.
Yeah.
Because they know that he and John
Had beef.
had beef.
Yeah.
There's that scene with the knife on his door, and he opens and he sees people looking at him.
Across the street. So he basically negotiates with Danford that if John Proctor confesses, they will release him and say like, he turned back to God.
And his
And
wife.
they will basically end this whole thing.
Well, because it's brought to him like, listen, if we do any more hangings, we're the bad guys now. And this great way to end this would be our Antichrist takes the fall, says no one else is involved, we killed the devil, and the judge goes, then let's go get
that works for me.
Let's go get a confession tonight. Like, let's go right now.
Yeah.
So they go to John Proctor and they bring Elizabeth along for her to try and convince him.
And Hale talks to Elizabeth first and says like, hey, just tell this lie.
Yeah. He's like,
He's so open about it being a lie too. In front of the judges. Oh, yeah. In front of the judges.
Again, Hale this whole time has been looking for his out.
Looking
and
for
he's
the
like,
out.
Okay, Elizabeth, I've orchestrated this ridiculous, I figured it out. All we have to do is for your husband to say that he's the Antichrist, and then it's over. And Elizabeth's like,
Normal thing to ask.
well,
The least I can do is talk to him.
I'll try. I guess, having a husband as the alleged Antichrist is better than the rest of the
dead one.
town to be hung. You know,
Yeah.
like if this is the only out, like all right.
And so then we get a beautiful scene with Elizabeth and John at the beach having their
The
conversation.
most like real people scene in the whole movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're
Real people.
Real
talking.
people actually talking, not
accuse each other of
through
witchcraft.
poor Bible interpretations.
Because he's saying like, listen, like I was an adulterer, and you know, part
Yeah, like let's end the madness, John.
Yes.
Like if you confess, the madness of the town ends, and you don't die. Like,
Yes.
right, and it's like I've forgiven you.
Yeah.
Win-win.
It's like this whole thing is you needed to forgive yourself for it,
Yeah.
and so then he then screams to the judges like, "I want my life!"
Yes.
And
and
they're
the
like,
judge is like, okay, sick.
"Thank God!" Yeah, literally, the judges are like, "Thank fuck."
It's like, oh my God, we get to end this.
Like, bring some paper and quill, and they literally write it out. And Proctor's is like, "Wait, what is this for?" And he's like, "We need you to write it. We're gonna nail it on the church door." It's like, "But I just told you that I confessed to being, you know,
The
the
Antichrist.
Antichrist." It's like, is that
you
not
don't
enough?
need my name.
And then he's like, "No, like this needs to go on the church door. We need everybody to know.
Everyone to know.
We need to take this official document back to."
Yeah.
English words that we finished it. It's like, but you're a judge. Like, if you just tell them you fixed it, like it's fine. And then so he's like, like this needs to be a true confession. So then he signs his name, and right before the guy grabs it, he snags the paper. He's
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing? Is this not a true confession?" He's like, "That who wants to say it? Who wants to say the line?"
And they're like, leave me my name. My name. And that's my name.
I only
Like, it's the-
one in my life.
It's the only thing I have left.
Yeah.
Is my name that goes to my sons.
Yeah.
And I just leave it that I did not work with the devil.
Yeah.
And that
I cannot have my name be
And
destroyed.
it's not even that he's lying about being with the devil.
Yeah.
That's not what's bothering him.
Yeah.
What's bothering him is that his lie will also condemn all the people that died
Yeah.
before
Yes.
and didn't confess.
Yeah,
Yes.
because if he says, yes, I did work with the devil, that means all of his friends who said, no, there was no devil ever.
Died for nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's what's really the crux of his guilt
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah.
It's
Our innocence must remain in history.
Yeah, and it is kind of like supposed to feel good. Like,
Yeah.
he's willing to die for justice, but not even just. He's willing to die for the truth. Him not lying, but the way that it's set up is like the three other women are like watching him do this, and these are like the next three to go, and they're Grandma, the nurse,
Rebecca Nurse
is like there, and they ask him, like, okay, if you are working with the devil, did you see any of these
People.
three? He's
Yeah.
like, what about
Yeah.
these guys? And he's like,
like,
no, they weren't working with the devil. The implication being they're gonna get let off the hook too. And then when he goes back, he's like, I will hang for this. I'm like, what about those three?
Well, but
those
then
three women want to die too.
to that though, I would say like Mary Osborne, who's also there too,
Mm-hmm.
and Rebecca Nurse, like when they get on like the wagon and they see John Proctor signing, they're like, "What's he do?" No, John, no! Like you can't do this. And
Yeah.
so I think they're
They're willing to die.
they're
for
willing
their,
to die.
They're willing. I do. Yes, I agree
Yeah.
that is the intention of the script.
Yeah.
The movie, however,
Yeah.
does
It's like he's
not
condemning
convince
them.
me. Yes, that is how it felt like to me. I was like, damn.
It's
Totally didn't selflessly save those people. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, the one way you could read this is like, yes, they're all like, dying for the truth. But I don't think the movie really convinced me at that point that
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
three were down to die. So it kind of
Yeah.
more came like he's protecting his good name and therefore
Yeah.
killing the other three women
Yeah.
he's being hung with.
Because like in the whole context of the show, then it will know these names
Yeah.
that they died in protection of this instead of in cowardice.
Yeah, then nobody confessed even in their last moments.
Yeah.
And so then they put him back on the wagon. Hale at this point is like, no, you fucking And he goes to Joan Allen. It's like, make him confess, make him say it. It's like, God forbid me, I take that away from him.
Yeah.
And so and then we get like the heart-wrenching start saying the Lord's Prayer.
Rare in a movie to watch the process of the people like walking up onto the gallows. Like you see the whole thing. Like it's really like a long process, and them like going up the stairs, getting in their positions. Like the executioner kind of like talks to each of them about like the procedure of what's going down, and like you just watch this in silence. There's no there's nothing. It's just people quietly doing it. It's very like haunting. It's very like man, there's a long period of time both for the audience to think about the ramification, like the heaviness of this, and all the characters are thinking about it. It's
intense.
Really well. I think it's really good filmmaking. Right, I agree. There.
And I love the final frame of the movie. That it's a close up of John Proctor as he recites the Lord's Prayer before
we forgive them that trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
And then it fades to black, and then we get the biopic-esque text at the end where it's like 19 people were hanged and
super corny.
Refused to give the false.
text
did not need to be there. Let's just all we need.
I didn't need a little bit of history at the end. I thought that was bad. But I mean, that scene is so good because the like not being able to clear as a like devil works. It's There's a very clear understanding that here believes that those specifically are the best people of our other guy getting stoned to death.
We totally missed that.
Yeah,
that happened way earlier, but
it didn't happen that much.
Not that much earlier. It was like right before the final confession scene, where Giles Corey, which historical.
I would like to say he was not stoned to death. He's pressed to death. It's called death by pressing on his Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Which I learned that as the movie portrays, that if you did not plead in the way that he was, because he was said that he had a name that he was not going to give them.
The craziest sidebar that didn't affect at the end was not part of anyone's arguments. Completely random testimony from hours ago.
And so the law at the time that because he would not give that name, he could not legally be tried because he hadn't done anything wrong. So they would instead do what is perfectly legal and just put rocks on top of the person to get them to say it.
But instead, he was just
because it's technically legal to do that.
Yeah.
And instead, he's just more weight crushed to death by the rocks.
Insane.
More weight.
Great scene, but goddamn.
Governor Phipps of Mass told about 19 people being executed. He's like, we gotta shut this shit down.
Yeah.
Or no more.
About fucking time.
It's the plot of the Crucible.
It is.
Pretty enthused by it. It gets 2 Academy Award nominations. Gets nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Joan Allen, and it gets nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay for Arthur Miller adapting his own work.
Yeah.
Both, I think, very deserving nominations.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Winona does not... Oh, we didn't even say how Winona's story ends in this movie. She runs off.
Yeah, we said that.
Okay.
Yeah, she runs off. She's Proctor a ride on a ship to Barbados, and then he says, "Go fuck yourself," and she leaves.
Yeah, and she leaves. Winona kind of goes into this project. She has now been nominated for 2 Academy Awards. Doesn't win either of them. This is, self-confessed, very much an attempt for her.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of my meatiest role yet. So when the movie comes out, and it gets pretty good critical reception, but not overwhelmingly great. Sure. It's kind of a burn for her. And it ends up being a box office flop. $25 million budget only makes $7 million, mostly because it's it's very bleak subject matter.
Yeah.
And to go see The Crucible with their but
Marketed very
as an
strangely.
erotic thriller. in combination with this, kind of is the beginning of a downturn for her.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't get the Oscar off of this in spite of deeply wanting it and pushing for
She
it.
didn't even get the nom.
She didn't even get the nom. Oof. She does not get an Oscar nomination again after Little Women, which we talked about a few weeks ago. But that she doesn't get it for this, which ends up being a flop. Like, she's not, like, prior to this, she basically was a guarantor of box office success for a movie.
Yeah.
That this movie flopped, and the movie we're going to talk about next week, which is Alien Resurrection, is, like, so scorned, and which is her attempt to get into, like, franchise filmmaking. It's the beginning of a downturn for Winona. Which I think, having watched this movie, is somewhat unfair, because I think she's
she's
good
great in this movie.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
I think she's able to really tap into a character who you have no sympathy for, but simultaneously like understand in this movie.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like,
It's a hard role, and she does it good.
Yeah, she's great.
It does seem like that this is a pivotal moment in her career, but we aren't going to a retrospective until after Simone.
Yes.
Is that because like there will be a few more like attempts after? Because like I do see what you're saying.
This is a big turn. This is a turning point, but it's not kind of the end of this era. She's still like A-list celebrity up until the whole shoplifting scandal, which we'll talk about when we get to it.
Nice.
But she still kind of like goes through and like, you know, Girl Interrupted, which we'll talk about, does kind of get like the thunder gets stolen from her in that movie. And then there are a few others. She's in an Adam Sandler movie, which will be fun to talk about.
What Adam Sandler movie is she in?
Mr. Deeds. A weird remake of like a fucking Jimmy Stewart movie. With Steve Buscemi with eye prosthetics. Crazy eyes.
Nice.
But yeah, that's the Crucible, and you know, it is a big, weird mark turning point for her. Which I think is really unfair. She's 20. She's like 25 in this movie.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and great in it.
That's crazy.
She's like at the point where she's like fucking picking directors for
Yes.
projects. Like that's
But she never has as much power after this point.
yeah.
Like we've kind of ended the period of Winona having like extreme power. Like Brian, we were talking about like for Little Women, How to Make an American Quilt. Some of those movies.
Yeah.
Those are movies where Winona comes in and she has power over it.
Yeah.
She can choose the director. She can help choose the castmates. And
She's
even
part
in
of development.
yeah.
Her casting gets it greenlit.
Yeah.
Like for a lot of those
and
projects.
her inclusion in the Crucible, especially with helping bring Daniel Day-Lewis back into the fold from Age of Innocence. Like this is really the end of her, you know, I have control. I'm major in this project's development phase.
Yeah.
There will be some movies where she still kind of has some of that coming up, but her like, you know, peak run is what we've just kind of covered. And this is really the tail of it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy how quickly that can happen in Hollywood.
oh man.
It's a fucked up place.
Yeah.
And she did so good in this movie.
She's fabulous in
Back to
it.
that. That's what a weird movie to begin a downturn on.
Yeah.
It's great that we get to talk about like this, and like I especially, it was nice getting to rewatch it because like as we all just said, like the last time I watched it was like high school English class. It is like a good movie just to watch on its own merit. It's funny how it is like brought up as an educational tool for a lot of institutions. But yeah, no, it's a good movie. I was almost to say it's a good experience, but it's like, is it a good experience?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Again,
it's an important story. If you haven't, if you haven't seen the play, you should see. I think this movie is a good alternative. If you can't go see the play, this
Watch the
movie is
a good movie.
good enough.
And we've covered enough like play adaptations on this show.
It's better than fucking Basement's The Dumbwaiter.
And like we've said it before, where it's like play adaptations, cinematic play adaptations are hard.
So hard.
Yeah.
Especially like I've said this before, but like you guys seen Fences? Have you seen Fences, Jeff?
I have not seen.
Like of course, like you got Viola Davis, you have Denzel Washington, and you have this like Tony like award-winning play that's like got great story, like so much cultural things to it. And it's like you go in to see it in a movie and you've heard all this press about the play, and then you watch it and you're like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Because it's all like, you know, it's the classic play adaptation where it's like the same sets.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of people talking, bunch of dramatic
Long
talking,
scenes.
long scenes, and like that's the movie.
Yeah.
And like occasionally, if the budget's big enough, they can afford a little cool location. But then for the most part, it's like, no, we're just gonna pre-build the house on a soundstage, and that's the play room.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really hard to do that in other places. And I feel like with the Crucible, the movie, it's nice in a way. I'm curious to see, because I've never seen the play. I'm curious how like the staging works with it, because this seems like such a story that needs like fucking Hog Island
Yeah.
with all the houses built. I don't know how it looks on the stage.
When I saw it, it was what do you call it when the stage like juts out into the audience?
Oh, God, I know what you're talking about.
I know what you're
You
talking
know what I'm
about,
saying?
but-
It's not
yeah.
theater in the round. It's only 3/4.
Sure,
But
yeah.
that's how they did it. There was almost no backdrop. It was just like large props that they would bring in for scenes.
Like, was there? But like, you knew you were in like inside of a 1600s house versus like out on the gallows.
I mean, you were
outside.
either. I think the locations I remember. This was 2015.
Yeah.
It was like the courthouse had a setup that had chairs in it.
Yeah.
The gallows had like a gallows thing, and then the Proctor home had like a table, and that was like
Wow.
where the story took place.
See, to me, it's like, and I'm sure that was great.
Awesome.
But like, this seems like a story that needs like the room, the space.
We were the crowd.
Oh, the crowd.
And that's why it was like all the way around.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Nice. All right. That's the Crucible.
Anybody else got anything final to say about it?
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I very much enjoyed this movie. Performances, some of the best we've covered in a while on this show.
Yeah.
Save for like Age of Innocence and all that. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Thank you, Brian, so much for coming back on. So happy to have you.
I'm really glad.
Good movie to
Significant
cover.
improvement over Sinbad Beyond the Veil of Mists.
Absolutely.
And then whatever
much easier to watch.
fucking Travolta movie we made you watch back in the day.
The something like the killing season.
Yeah, Killing Season.
Yeah. Killing season.
With Travolta
great.
and De Niro.
Yeah. The elk being Jesus.
Yes, the elk
or
being.
something.
We
Right.
went a little wild on that one.
We did.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. Next week, as we mentioned, we'll be talking about Alien Resurrection.
Resurrection. That you'll be getting the week after
The
Easter.
fourth Alien movie, coming out, April 10th, because this episode just came out April 3rd.
2 week. Okay.
Yeah,
so
a week and a
2
half
weeks-
after a week and a half after the resurrection.
Resurrection of Christ.
Yeah, you'll be talking about the resurrection. We are deeply pushing to record that episode on Easter. I am really trying.
Nice.
Because I think that would be good.
It won't be released on Easter, but damn well we can record
We
it
can
on Easter.
record it on Easter.
Yeah.
We will not be talking about the birth of Christ. We're talking about the birth of the human hybrid xenomorph.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe whenever platform you're listening on. As a reminder, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Podcasts, wherever you want to find us. Pop into our Reddit, r// Travolting, @TravoltingPod, Twitter or Instagram, TravoltingPodcast@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter @JeffWSweeney. Anything you guys want to plug?
No.
All right, special thanks as always to Beck for our graphic design and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for the theme music that is now taking you out. Have a great week, folks.